like this. Hit it.
The Roger Report live morning show, weekdays at 9 a.m.
Say y'all, I was on Roger's panel a few times and I couldn't take it. The heat. I got out the kitchen. It was hot. I was sweating. I had to get out.
He's Roger, and he's right.
Check this out.
We can live or die. You choose. I have spoken to you a lot of times in hatred and anger, and you have not heard me. Well, you had better hear me today. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillars. And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Roger Report Live, the best show on social media. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and take this moment out to hit that like button, because this is where you're going to find the best content on social media, and you don't have to worry about it because you're going to have me right here to make sure that happens. And if you've already been coming to the channel for a while, then go ahead, hit that like button, because you already know what time it is. And you know that this is where you're going to get the best content on social media. It's not a mystery to you at this point. You've seen other people do it. You've seen other people do it well. But what you have not seen is anyone do it quite the way I do it. So make sure you hit that like button. And everyone, yes, everyone, take a moment out to share the content, y'all. Share the content. There are so many people who need to get great content like this. And it's just a small thing you can do to help the world be a better place. And isn't that what we want at the end of the day? Don't we want the world to be a better place? Of course we do. So share the content out. Share it through your social media. Share it through word of mouth, or even text someone's phone. But do what you got to do to help spread the word. All right, folks, today we're going to be talking a little bit about, because I want to have this on record. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about American birthrights. Some have it, some don't. Okay. American birthrights. Some have it, some don't. All right. Now, due to things that are going on, this could be taken a lot more literally lately, or it can be contextualized, because there are people who have American birthrights who are born in this country, but there are people who are not born in this country who do not have American birthrights. And it seems to be an issue on if you're born in this country. Will you have the birthrights, or won't you have the birthrights? Now, I think it's good for people to discuss it. It's good for people to make a declaration on what it is and what it isn't. The whole country needs to know what it is when it comes to this. But I do think there's some issues going on that no one's really talking about that makes this turn into an issue. But before we go too far into that, what I want to do right now is just take a moment out and give credit where credit is due. We have people who come through this channel and make financial contributions that make a world of difference, because I cannot do things the same way without these folks. So I got to give a shout out to the people who step up to the plate and become financial contributors to the channel. So shout out to my main man, J Dub. He is the sponsor of today's stream. Appreciate you big time, brother. Appreciate you big time. Over here at the Roger Report Live, y'all, you can't do too little, but you definitely can't do too much. So I appreciate everyone who financially contributes to the channel, because you do make a world of difference. So shout out to J Dub, the sponsor of today's stream. And I also want to give a shout out to some of the people who check in this morning. You know, the early folks. So shout out to the one, the only, my main man, Tunnel Runner. He's in the first position, y'all. And you know what that's called over here? There can only be one. That is the Highlander of today's stream. So shout out to Tunnel Runner for being the Highlander of today's stream. Appreciate you big time, my brother. Appreciate you big time. Glad to have you here. Glad to have you here. We also got J Dub in the building. The sponsor of today's stream is in the house, the deputy on the grill. Shout out to you, J Dub. Good to have you here, brother. Good to have you here. We got Lee's Way in the house. Lee's Way is in the house. Glad to have you. We got Sarah B here. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? She says, random chick is in the house. Laugh out loud. Morning, y'all. Head up to my spot in the back. Oh, Sarah, you been here a while. You come up to the front here now. You done been here a while. Shout out to Bad Ombre. Great to see you, brother. Great to see you. Afro Merchant is in the building. Good to have you, brother. Good to have you here. We got I'm listening in the house as well. Glad to see you all. Glad to see y'all. And we about to get started, man, on this birthright citizenship, man. A lot of things have come up with this birthright citizenship thing. And should it be made as much of a deal as is being made? I'm not going to say that, okay? Because technically, it should be no big deal at this particular point. But I do think the issue that the reason why it's becoming such a big deal is because people don't want to be real about what's real. I do think that has a lot to do with it. People do not want to be real about what's real. Why is this such a big deal to talk about this 14th Amendment or birthright citizenship? You know, people want to take a position of pro-immigration or anti-immigration, but but they want to be somewhat slick about it, I guess. Now, this is the thing. I understand anybody who, quote unquote, feels like, hey, we love everybody, give somebody a chance. I totally get all that. I am not, mad at you for feeling that way about anything. But let's just say this, y'all. Let's just throw this out there. Should Americans be America first? Let's think about that question, y'all. Should Americans be America first? Because I do think a lot of the things that's coming up in this situation is about America's not being America first. Now, do I think it's cool to have other people come into the country? Yeah, I ain't got no problem with that. Am I mad at someone with the quote unquote American dream where they live in another country and they just want to get over to America for a better experience? Am I mad at anybody about that? Absolutely not. Do I believe America is the greatest country on the planet? Well, America does have me, so depends on how you go about making that determination. America does have me, so hey, if you got me, you got to be one of the greatest. That's all I can tell you on that one. You got me. What more do you need? And I hope all of you all feel the same way. It's the one reason I can argue that America is the greatest country on the world is because I'm here. I hope every American feels that way about themselves, okay? Because that's subjective to certain degrees. But there are a lot of people who do want to come to America, and there are people who are able to get to America. Now, I have said in the past that I do not have an issue with people who are coming over to this country to be born in America. Okay, if you fight through whatever elements you got to fight to get over here so you can have a child that's born in America, all I'm going to say is, man, knock yourself out. I ain't even tripping. I understand what it's like or have some understanding of what it's like for a person to risk it all to get over to America just so their baby can be born here. Because that's what people are doing. They are risking life and limb so their babies can be born here because they want to crack at that American dream. Now, the American dream could be different for different people. It's probably very much a different thing to foreign people versus people who are actually from this country. It's probably a very different thing to those folks. So I do get there's people coming over here so they can live the American dream. But yeah, there's some people come over here and they risking life and limb so their babies can be born here. All right. Now, this is the thing. Do you want the dream? Because if you want a dream, you got to fight for it. And the question is, do you want it bad enough? Now, shout out to Afro Merchant. Afro Merchant says right from Jump Street, he says, Trump interpreted the 14th Amendment the way it was meant to be interpreted. Now, shout out to Afro Merchant. You know, I'm not going to argue with that. It seems like Trump has been America first, and his interpretation of the 14th Amendment does actually go along with, quote unquote, the spirit that people wrote it in. I'll say that. Somewhat of the spirit of that people wrote it in. Now, I will say this, though. Okay, this is where, you know, America's racism let things get out of control. You know, and in order to hate that black man, America has done so much stuff. All right. It's been about hating black men the whole time since the foundation of this country. And, you know, you can use the Constitution as evidence of itself. Now, was this amendment made in order to help black Americans? Yeah, because it kind of had to. Because America said, okay, well, we lost this particular one because we wanted to keep our slaves. We wanted to keep these niggas in check. But because we was too stupid and could not agree amongst ourselves as white men, we couldn't make certain agreements. Now we had to fight a war. Now the war's over. The Union won. So now we still one country. But what we gonna do with these niggas? Because, you know, we had to fight a war. And unfortunately, we had to let these niggas go. If we didn't let these niggas come and fight in the war, which we wasn't even trying to do that at first, our country would not be what it is today. We would be the Confederate States of America if it was not for the fact that the people in that time said, you know what? We losing. We got to turn this around. Let them niggas fight. They want to fight. We obviously can't win. Let them niggas fight. So the quote unquote nigga had to go save America. The niggas had to go save America and to let America even exist as a country. Now, are people going to tell you that? Not really. They might even talk around it in history, but they're not going to tell you the flat out truth. The niggas that were so hated, the niggas, okay? Now, I understand some of y'all may say, well, it was black people and all that. No. That ain't what the thought process was. The thought process is we about to lose. We don't want to lose. We can't stand them niggas, but let them niggas fight so they can save our behinds. And if it were not for black men going out there fighting, we would not be living in the United States of America. We would be living in the Confederate States of America. So now, due to all this racism, the quote unquote niggas done saved the country. The niggas done kept the union together. Okay, we turned the tide so they can even have this as a country. But white people thought to themselves, well, if we ain't got slaves, what these niggas gonna be? So questions start coming up about citizenship. Because we knew they wasn't citizens when they was property. There's nothing to argue about there. If you're property can't be a citizen. Okay? Your car is property. Your car is not a citizen. Okay, that's what makes sense. Property ain't supposed to be a citizen. It should be something a citizen. It should be something that belongs to a citizen, but it shouldn't be a citizen. But things change over time. Things change over time. You know, but property is meant to belong to a citizen, not to be a citizen. Now, there's been some corrupt stuff that has went on with that idea as well. So now, y'all, we got some folks who mad. All right, a lot of folks is mad about certain things, and they've been mad historically. They still mad to this day. And truth be told, a lot of people ain't gonna just come out and admit, yeah, these niggas saved America. If it wasn't for these niggas that we hate, these niggas we can't stand, we would be living in the Confederate States of America instead of the United States of America. Now, this birthright citizenship thing is complex to a lot of people. If you listen to reports about it, you will continually hear people saying how complex the issue is. Now, of course, it's not so complex to me because, I try to think about things and, come up with a fast and simple solution. So it's not as complex to me as it is to everybody else. Now, I heard what's being pushed. Okay, now what's being pushed right now is that you can be a citizen in this country only if the mother is here under legitimate circumstances and the father is a citizen of America. That's what's being pushed. If you're born in this country, you can be born in this country if the mother is here legally and the father is an American citizen. That's the way they want it to be, y'all. That's the way they want it to be. Okay, that's Trump's vision for America. Now, there's a lot of people who don't like that particular vision. And the thing is, y'all, it's not about disrupting people who already have citizenship. They're trying to push something past that says they're not going to strip citizenship from someone who already got it, but they are willing to say that the only way you can get it, unless you're going to be naturalized, is that, hey, you have to be born here. Your mama got to be here under the right legal circumstances, and your father has to be an American citizen. And things like that will come up because you have people who are born here, but they're not really from here. Because you got diplomats who are not under the jurisdiction of America. They may be from another country. They're not going to get American citizenship. Your parents may be visiting at this time. Your parents you've already been conceived, but you have not been born. And maybe during a visit to America, maybe something's going on. You're here for a period of time. Maybe you're here for 6 weeks and the baby just happens to be born. Well, that baby is not going to get American citizenship because it's not under the jurisdiction of America. And that's why we have terms like diplomatic immunity. Okay? Everybody's not under the jurisdiction of America. Now, there are people who will make an argument that even if you're visiting from another country, you're technically under the jurisdiction of America because when you go to any country, you got to follow that country's rules. And that's just the way it goes down. And there's people who try to interpret that as meaning, hey, well, you're under the jurisdiction of America because you have to follow America's rules when you are here. And I guess that's people trying to get real technical because truth be told, nobody has to follow America's rules, not even Americans. That's why you have a thing such as called breaking the law. So nobody got to follow the rules. We follow the rules if we want to. We follow the rules if we have the ability to, but nobody, quote unquote, has to follow the rules. So I guess one technicality should be able to deal with another technicality, but people get real technical about these things. And y'all, I've seen a lot of folks trying to make it about Trump. There are a lot of people out here who are trying to make this a Trump issue. Even though Trump is the president, this is an American issue. Because when Trump dead and gone, laws being in place are laws being in place. There's a whole lot of people who have made some laws. They are dead and gone. And I think people are using Trump to rile up black folks. I'll say that. They're using Trump to rile up black folks. This is just my theory. I think because I see a lot of black women who are kind of siding with these particular type of things that's out there in the media. You know, not saying that other people won't. I think they believe it's working. So they put Trump out there. The black women don't like Trump. You know, so they're gonna do everything they can to side against Trump. And the thing is, this ain't about Trump, y'all. This is bigger than Trump. This is about America. You know, and you got these immigrants out there, quote unquote, marching and protesting and things like that. And I'm just gonna say some of the protest information I'm getting is somewhat funny, because if you're an illegal protesting to gain American citizenship or to be treated as an American, you sound asinine to me. The last thing I would do as an illegal immigrant would be to protest so I can get treated as an American, because the concept doesn't even make sense. All right, the concept does not even make sense. I'm going to protest so I can be treated as an American. And I think, y'all, America has been a little too soft. I think that's probably what a major issue. America been too soft. We don't know how to just give somebody the business if it ain't a black man. See, when you deal with black men, America seems to know how to give everybody the business. You know, you can get the quote unquote treatment when you're a black man. Ain't a whole lot to figure out when you're a black man. But when other people get involved or it somehow affects other people, America don't know how to, stick to a position or whatever. Seems kind of crazy if you ask me. Look, I got nothing against immigrants, right? There are immigrants who come to America in a legal process that I technically don't fully understand the legal process to come over here in America, because I'm never going to have to use it. I'm not an American citizen. Excuse me. I'm an American citizen due to the fact that I was born here. There's no question about when my father was born. There's no question about my mother was born. They were both American citizens. So I'm never going to have to, quote unquote, fight my way to get American citizenship. Now, if someone wants to disregard my citizenship, depending upon the context of what's going on, that's possibly grounds for them to lose their life. But I'm not, quote unquote, fighting to get in. So I don't know the process to become a American citizen, to be naturalized as an American citizen. I don't know the full extent of the process. I just know what people tell me who've been through it, because I don't care enough to check. And that's just all it is at the end of the day. But see, my thing is that we do have a legal process for people to do it. Now, we have other people in this country who have come over illegally, and they've never went through the process to become a naturalized citizen of the country. Now, I don't know if there's something blocking them because they came over the wrong way. I don't know. I would think the best thing to do, though, if you were here, is to see if you could become a legal member of the society. And I know a lot of immigrants want black people to come help. There are some black people who are willing to go help. I'm going to say, as a black man, I don't see why I should. You're illegal. As a black man, why should I go help somebody and defend their right to be illegals? See, the law real tricky with black men. Okay, the law gets real tricky with black men. All right, they'll bother us when we following the law. All right, we'll do everything we supposed to and be following the law, and they'll still mess with us. So why would I say anything in support of anybody who's coming over as an illegal? Now, this could affect somebody in a personal way. My thing is, y'all, this ain't personal. It's just business. Sometimes you got to just separate personal from business. If you are a person who is an illegal immigrant, but maybe you love the Roger Report Live, there might be something in a particular person where they done found out about the Roger Report Live. They might come here every day. They may support everything I do. But if they're illegal, what am I supposed to say on their behalf? I don't see nothing. I don't see no fight. I'll put it like that, John. I don't see why I will be fighting for an illegal to continue to break laws. Okay, that don't make sense to me. A person is already illegal. Why would I fight so they can break laws? Just don't seem to make sense. All right. Now, black men, do we generally respect the law? I'm gonna say, yeah, generally we do. Now we know the law is anti-us, but we have generally respected the law. We have went through a lot of different things to get things changed about the law, but we have, for the most part, respected the law. And we would have, that's why we would try to do things to go through legal processes to get laws changed. We haven't just acted in chaos. People act like we act like we're chaotic, but if you look at how black men operate, most of us clearly just we have respect for the law, and we would try to get the law changed for the betterment of us, but we don't just go around breaking laws like we just don't care. Now, I understand there are people who want us to go protest for illegals. I just don't see how that makes sense. And there may be some people who are disappointed because they may connect with the Roger Report Live. But I got to be real with you, y'all. I just don't see how it makes sense for me as a black man to go try to help an immigrant break laws. There's a legal way to come in this country. Why not just do it the legal way? That's gonna be my first question. Anybody who's trying to break the law, why not just do it the legal way? If there's a legal option, why take the option that isn't legal? Now, I do understand none of us are perfect, and we're not going to always make the best decisions at every turn. Have I done things illegal? Absolutely. Yeah, because I think just about everybody, we done did something illegal. Okay? So I'm not going to come off like I'm this perfect person, but I'm just saying, being realistic, if you got to the country, however you got to the country, why not get yourself legalized if there's a process to get yourself legalized? Does it make sense to just be on the lam forever and a day? And there's people who've been in this country for decades that have been illegal. Why do you do that to yourself if you have a path where you can go become legal? Now, I will say this. Every time I've suggested that, no one has actually ever said to me, now I'm not going to act like I did any research on it, but no one's have actually said to me, there's no way for me to become a legal citizen. Now, if there's a way, if there was something going on to block you from becoming a legal citizen, then maybe there's something else to talk about, or we have to re-examine some stuff. But I've never heard of someone being blocked to become a legal citizen. Okay? There's multiple ways to do it. Why not get some of them done? Now we have this ICE thing that's been in the news a lot lately. And the ICE is supposed to go out there and round up all the immigrants. Do I have an issue with ICE rounding up immigrants? No, not really. If this personally affects you, it's not me being anti-you. If you're here as an illegal, I just don't see why I should make a public statement to say it's okay that you breaking the law. Because as a black man, people don't really support black men for breaking the laws. People talk about us bad anytime we break a law. They talk about us real bad when we break a law. So why would I fight for other people to break laws? Especially if those people are going to enjoy privileges of American citizens much more than I will. Because let's be realistic, y'all. Let's be realistic. Let's say you're a legal white man in this country. Because illegals come in all shapes and colors, y'all. Let's not forget that. Because people try to make it a racial thing. There's all kinds of illegals in the country. Black, white, Hispanic, what I'm saying, whatever. You name it, there's some illegal that fits that description. Now, let's say you're an illegal white man. You're walking around America doing your thing. You go here and there, no problem whatsoever. You as illegal can be, but you're an illegal white man. Think about it, y'all. Who y'all think enjoys more privileges of a citizen in America? A random black man or a random illegal white man? Now I'm saying the black man is actually an American citizen. He was born in this country. His daddy is an American citizen. His mama is an American citizen, but they're black. So you got two black people that were both American citizens and had a black boy that grew up, became a man. Who y'all think enjoy America the most? The black man who's a citizen or the white man who on some illegal stuff? Okay. And I know a lot of folks never think about illegal white men. Y'all think white people ain't over here illegally? Think about that, y'all. Y'all think ain't no white folks over here illegally? Now, they don't throw them on the news like that. Or they're going to say, oh, no, those are Hispanic folks or something. Y'all think other folks who are just plain old white people from other countries who don't come over here legally? But you never hear about them guys. Okay, you don't hear about them. Okay, now you've been black your whole life. You know what I'm saying? Getting stopped anytime they want to stop you. Okay, being harassed. You know, they checking your papers because you're a black man. All right, they got to make sure you're the right black man. You know, and the way they look about it is you the right black man if you the black man that did something illegal, so I could take you in. White man come over here, he don't never get checked. Yeah, I remember years and years ago. You know, I think we was in the 2000s, y'all. I'm pretty sure we was in the 2000s. Okay, I mean I know for sure we was in the 2000s. But I remember a white man came into a building. We checked the man ID. Y'all know that white man had been driving on a driver's license from '86. That man had the old ID, y'all, with the laminated old laminated ID. We in 2000s, y'all. That man been driving on a license that he hadn't renewed since '86. Okay. Now I don't remember what year in 2000 exactly it was, but let's just say it was early, like 2000, 2001, 2002. The man been driving on license '86. You know? Have I ever gone a year without just being randomly pulled over? I can't say that. I cannot say that, y'all. I ain't drove 1 year without a random pullover. I'm not saying I was pulled over while I was breaking some law, while I was speeding or I was turning illegally. No, I'm just talking about a regular old driving down the street, wasn't breaking no rules at all. And I don't think I've made it through 1 year without getting pulled over at least once. This dude been driving on a license '86. You know, we got to be at least 2000, y'all. He was driving on a license that hadn't been renewed since '86. We talking about 14 years old. Okay. We had like the new licenses then, y'all, like how they are now. But he had the old laminated license because what? He don't get pulled over. He just go about his business. Okay. Now I'm not saying he was an illegal or anything like that. I'm just saying he go about his business. He ain't got to renew. The rest of us, we got to renew. I got to make sure my license always updated. But him, nah, he ain't got to worry about that. He just move around as he see fit, and everything cool. So there's white people, okay, who just as illegal as other folks, who get to come to America, enjoy all kinds of privileges and whatnot that was not meant for them because they were not American citizens. But hey, when have you ever seen something on the news about all these illegal white men? Bet you ain't never seen. Okay, bet you ain't never seen. All right, so now we got these illegal folks that people say, man, we need to leave them alone. You know, I've literally heard people say, well, who's gonna pick the strawberries? You know, we got the illegals picking the strawberries. Who's gonna pick the strawberries? Now, is that a legitimate thing to say? You know what? Maybe it is. Maybe there is some place in the country where there is true concerns about certain jobs because folks be saying, well, the Americans don't want these jobs. I don't buy into it. I don't buy into it at all. Okay. But they say stuff like, who gonna pick the strawberries? All right, let's keep it real for a hot second. Because there are some people who worry about deportation, not for their, not because it's a quote unquote personal issue to them. It's an indirect issue because they can't get their strawberries picked, y'all. Maybe these folks eat cornflakes in the morning. Maybe they like to, chop up some strawberries and put it into the cornflakes. Okay, maybe that's what they want to do. They want to chop up the strawberries, put it in the cornflakes, because that's just how they like to get down. Okay, but in order for them to do that, the way they want to do that, somebody got to pick the strawberries. All right, so they got concerns of who's gonna pick these strawberries, and they say things like, "Well, you know what? These farms need these illegals so they can pick the strawberries." And I mean, it's other different jobs. I'm just using picking the strawberries as an example because I heard somebody talking about it. Okay. Now, I tend to think that if you need some strawberries picked, you can just hire some Americans to pick your strawberries. Because if you can hire illegals, you can hire some Americans. Then there will be people who say, well, if you hire an American, it's going to cost more money. That's why they're hiring illegals. They won't be able to afford this. They won't be able to afford that. Blah, blah, this, blah, blah, this. So basically what you're telling me, and I'm going to say some supposed white man who owns a farm, this supposed white man who owns a farm needs to hire illegals so he can afford to pay enough people to pick all the strawberries he need picked so he can have a good financial day. So he can have a good financial month. So he can have a good financial year. And somehow, and for some reason, I'm supposed to be concerned about this random white guy who has a farm who's using undocumented illegals to make money in this country. And somehow I'm supposed to be concerned about this. And I'm just going to say, y'all, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. If I was going to eat some cornflakes, I would want some strawberries in my cornflakes too. I really would, y'all. If that was my thing, if I was getting up in the morning and I pulled down a box of cornflakes, yeah, I probably want some strawberries in my cornflakes. I do. But how many strawberries I want? Okay, how many strawberries I want, y'all? I don't know how many strawberries you put into a box of cornflakes. Okay, I don't know how many you put into a box of cornflakes to be satisfied. But I get it. You need those strawberries. So my question would be, why can't the white farmer just hire some Americans? Crazy idea. I know, y'all. Crazy idea. Why can't the farmer just hire some Americans? Okay. Shout out to Better You, y'all. Better You say, Roger, white folks cheap and lazy. It makes perfect sense. Now, I'm not going to argue about white folks being cheap, and I'm definitely not going to argue about them being lazy because there's way too much evidence out there for me to, make any kind of real argument about that. Okay? It's way too much evidence. All right? Now, my thing is this, y'all. All right, so you want to pay illegals to work the farm space so they can pick the strawberries, and then then they'll say, well, other people don't want to do it. Well, how about this, y'all? How about this? How about you pay somebody at least minimum wage, and they come pick your strawberries for you? Don't that solve the problem? And I know people gonna say, well, if you do the math, this guy may get 2 illegals when he can only afford 1 citizen, or technically 3. Maybe he get 3 illegals for every citizen that he can get to pick a strawberry. My thing is like, and why would I consider any of that at the end of the day? Why is that a problem? Well, if he could only, maybe he got a farm and, he got 30 people handling the strawberries on the farm. Okay. But see, if he went legit and started hiring Americans, he could only handle 10. So we need 30 men out here to pick. Well, I guess women could do that too. Would they do it? I don't know. Okay, well, we need 30. We got 30 people out here we need to get these farms picked at the right rate. So all the strawberries get picked and they don't go spoiled and all that other stuff, right? And he don't make no money off of it. He can afford 30 illegals, or he can afford 10 Americans. I hear stuff like this, y'all. And I be trying to figure out who owned the farm. Like, in their mind, who owns this farm? Who owns this farm in their mind? Like, for real, who owns this farm in their mind? Because they be thinking about some white guy. Okay? And if I ask them, it does come out to, generally people will assume you talking about some white guy. All right? So you got some white guy who owns a farm. Ain't no telling how his family even got that farm in the first place. But that's beside the point. That's beside the point. At least for now, that's beside the point. The white guy need 30 illegals to handle this farm and get all these strawberries picked so he can make a profit. Because the white guy can only afford 10 Americans. Okay? Because Americans maybe they get some benefits on the job or whatever. Okay? Or maybe they're just trying to get a little bit beyond minimum wage. I don't know exactly what the issue would be. But he can afford 30 illegals, or he can afford 10 Americans. And if he only got the 10 Americans, there's a chance the Americans wouldn't be quick enough to, handle the crop. So some random white man may lose some money because he can't handle his crop. Now, as a Black American man, I don't understand what the problem is. Now, if you tell me, well, if he lose too much money, it's going to affect his whole life. He got to be able to afford it. He got to be able to pay his mortgage if it's not already owned property. He got to be able to pay his car notes. He got to put his kids through college. He got to take care of his wife. He got a son and a daughter. He got a typical American white family. He has 1 son and 1 daughter, and he gotta be able to take care of all of them. But if you don't have those 30 illegals, he can't make money the way he needs to take care of all of them. I hear people say stuff like this and explain it, and I be trying to figure out, so where's the actual problem? Now, I understand I don't react to stuff the way a lot of other people do. Okay? Shout out to Truth Teller. Always good to see you in the building, brother. Always good to see you in the building. Okay? Now, you can go with the 30 illegals and he can make a nice profit and make a good living. All right? Or you can go with the 10 Americans. You won't make as much money. Life will be financially tougher for the guy who owns the farm. As a Black man, when I hear the white guy gonna have to go through some tougher stuff because he can only afford 10 Americans. I don't hear no problem. Okay, I don't hear a problem. If he got more farmland than he can handle, he can sell some of that farmland to somebody else. Problem solved. And people may say, well, no, that's not solving the problem, because if he sells part of the farmland, once it's sold, he won't make money off that anymore. So he's still gonna have the same struggle because he can still only afford the 10 Americans. Okay. Maybe he needs to learn how to live with less money. Okay. Now, shout out to Truth Teller. Truth Teller, what do you mean by this? Somebody help me, y'all. He says American EEs want fair market amounts for pay. Are we talking about American employees? Because when you put the EEs, I don't know. I kind of lost it right there. What's the EEs? Okay. He said he want fair market amounts. He want a fair market amounts for pay. Okay, so if we talking about American employees, yeah, I totally get that. All right. Truth Teller said something else. Let me see what he said. He said somebody should ask him what his kids do for a living. It better be picking strawberries. Truth Teller, that's a fine point, my man. That's a fine point. Very fine point, if you ask me. Okay. Oh, okay. Truth Teller says EEs are the HR term for employees. Okay. There we go. EEs are the HR term for employees. Shout out to you, Truth Teller. Appreciate that. And his son and daughter. Truth be told, man, when they get to a certain age, they should be the best strawberry pickers in the business. You shouldn't be able to find an employee that can pick strawberries better than the man's son and the man's daughter. They should be the top strawberry pickers. Let's just keep it real. Now, in this scenario, y'all, I don't see any particular problem. Okay. I see the farmer being able to handle things by selling, maybe he got to sell half his land or something like that and let somebody else work that and make that money. And people gonna say, well, he ain't gonna make the same money he used to make. I don't see how that's a problem. That's me. I don't know how y'all see it. I don't see how that's a problem. If he sell the farmland, somebody else gets the farmland, they work the farmland with some more Americans. Okay. The strawberries gonna make it to market, and everybody got strawberries for their cornflakes. I don't see what the issue is. And if y'all say, well, the math ain't right because he can only afford 10, 10 Americans for 30 immigrants. Okay, well, maybe he got to sell the farm to two different people, and maybe two different people take on two pieces of property, and they all got 10 Americans apiece. And guess what, y'all? The strawberries still get picked. They make it to market. When you get your cornflakes in the morning, you got strawberries to put in. Everybody's fine. Now, people would argue everybody ain't fine because the original farmer is not making the money he used to make. And I'm trying to figure out, how is that a problem? Do you need to own farmland that you can't handle? Ain't that how business go, y'all? If you can't handle the business, you need to get out the business. Okay? Shout out to Trey. I'm gonna see what Trey's saying. I see he said something about the hypothetical farmer, so I'm gonna see what Trey talking about. Trey says the hypothetical farmer ain't taking a loss. A smart businessman would just charge double for the strawberries to cover payroll. Shout out to Trey. And you know what? That makes sense because we see that done all the time, right? We see that done all the time. But then you run into this thing where people say, well, groceries are getting too high. See, none of this makes sense to me as a problem, y'all. None of it makes sense to me as a problem. If you can do what you need to do and earn your money, more power to you. If you can't do what you need to do to earn your money, more power to you. And see, it don't make me no difference either way. All right? I don't care whose strawberries is going to my cornflakes. You know, I don't care. If it's say, you know, well, I guess technically, if I knew it was coming from a black-owned farm, sure, I'd buy those first. I'll be honest about that, y'all. I would buy those first. But if it's coming from the Schmidt farm versus coming from the Sadowski farm, all a bunch of white folks, I don't care who's farm. I don't care who win at the strawberries. I just don't care at the end of the day. So when people say we need these illegals to do this and we need these illegals to do that, I don't understand. I don't get why we need them to do anything. That's my perspective on illegals. I don't get why we need them to do anything. A lot of folks will argue and say, well, you know, there's jobs out here, such as quote unquote picking strawberries, that Americans just ain't gonna do. I don't know that any job like that exists, y'all. I don't know that any job like that exists. Okay? Cause I ain't from money. Okay, I'm not from money. There was no job I wasn't willing to take. The only job I tried to ever avoid was being a janitor. And I actually did some janitorial work for a while, but I left because I did not sign up for that. And it's not about the janitor, because I don't have any problem with a janitor. You know, I had friends that do janitorial work and all that type of stuff. My only issue about being a janitor is that y'all nasty, man. I'm saying the public, man. I'm saying the public. Well, now I ain't gonna say y'all because it ain't all of us out here. But the way people treat public facilities, that's what did make me want to be a janitor. That's all it was. It wasn't the work. You know, if you pay me X amount of dollars to clean off a toilet, I take it. I ain't care nothing about that. It was just, man, y'all. It's folks that just do nasty stuff in public facilities. That's all it is. That's why I don't think I could take being a janitor. But if I ain't had no other option, if they was the only people hiring, I ain't had no income, I would be a janitor. Just is what it is. I would swallow that if I had to. Real talk. Okay? So when people say there's jobs out there that Americans won't take, I don't believe them. I'm just being straight up honest, y'all. I don't believe them. I don't believe there's a job out here that Americans won't take. You know? Now, I hear all this stuff about unemployment, but then people say it's jobs Americans won't take. Again, I hear all this stuff about unemployment, yet I hear there's a job that Americans won't take. Now, I understand once you make a certain amount of money, you don't want to regress. I totally get that. But y'all know it's new people who ain't never had a job out here every day. People born every single day. Every single day, it's a new batch of 18-year-olds out here. And I'm just going to go straight to 18-year-olds because now we're talking about adults. It's a new batch of 18-year-olds every single day. Okay? How you going to tell me it's people that won't take the job? Why won't they take the job? They was 18, and everybody don't come from money. I don't come from money. I know we all like to tell a story like we had it like this and we had it like that. I don't come from money, man. You know what I'm saying? My father did a good job. You know what I'm saying? He raised us kids. He only made X amount. You know, he did very good moves with the money he made. But he wasn't rich. It just is what it is. Now, I don't think he's a low individual or anything like that because he wasn't rich. He was a great man to me. He's my hero at the end of the day. But we just wasn't rich. Now, I know everybody want to act like they was rich. Okay, I know people hate on Michael Jordan shoes because people always try to use Jordans as like it's a bad thing that people bought Jordans. But I didn't get my first pair of Jordans till I was 35, and I was right here in the city of Chicago growing up. And I wasn't able to get mine until I was 35. I was a grown man before I could buy my first pair of Jordans. So all this, there's jobs that people won't take. I don't believe you. I just don't. I know too many people that was looking for jobs of any kind. Okay. All right. So I don't believe you. And I'm gonna let y'all know that about me. Anybody telling me there's jobs out here that Americans won't take, I just don't believe. It's that simple at the end of the day. Because I ain't never seen a shortage of employees. Okay. There's people who well, at least I'll say people willing to be employees who could not find a job. All right. Yeah. I ain't never seen it. So to tell me somebody ain't gonna pick some strawberries, my thing, what's so bad about picking strawberries? There's plenty of folk that work outside. Okay. Ain't nobody gonna pick strawberries. Really? Because it's a bunch of 18-year-old people that was just like me. They was 18, they ain't had squat. Okay. I was 18 working a minimum wage job. You telling me somebody couldn't pay me to, I mean, I'm just not from that area. But you telling me a person who grew up in Chicago that was working a minimum wage job at 18 wouldn't take a job picking some strawberries? That sounds insane to me. I'd have picked some strawberries, especially if you gave me over minimum wage. Just is what it is. All right. So now, I don't believe I need illegals to pick my strawberries. I just don't. Okay. I don't have a personal concern about a farmer struggling to get his strawberries picked. I also don't have an issue with the farmer losing his farm because it's America, y'all. Somebody will buy it. Okay. Shout out to Land. Land say Negroes where I live would gladly pick strawberries for $15 an hour. You know, and I believe it's a lot of people around the country that would do the same thing. You know, now maybe they were paying I don't know what they paying the illegals. Maybe they was paying the illegals $5. You know what I'm saying? $5 an hour, you an illegal, so they can get 3 for the price of 1 because the American wants the 15. I can see that as a very real thing, or something close to that is a very real thing. But I'm cool with the American getting paid 15 an hour. I'm fine with the farmer not having a farm that's productive enough that he don't have to make some drastic moves. I do understand there could be an issue about him raising the prices. You know what I do when they raise prices on stuff? I just don't buy it. I don't cry about it. I just don't buy it. I'll holler at you when the price is right. It's that simple to me, you know? And I think that's just something Americans got to learn to do, because I know as Americans, a lot of time we can't wait to spend money at every single thought process and every single corner. We always trying to figure out how to spend some money the next time. I was just talking to a young lady about that. The only thing you're thinking about is how to spend more money. You ain't trying to figure out how to make some money. You always trying to figure out how to spend some money. But if you're going to do that, you better learn to make some money first, you know? So I do understand that that's like an American issue, that Americans, a lot of us, we just want to spend more money. We can be totally broke, but how do I spend some more money? Not how do I earn more money? How do I spend more money? So my thing is, I don't have a problem with people making some adjustments. You know, I keep hearing about the price of eggs going up. Don't buy the eggs. That's all I'm going to tell you, y'all. Price going to come right on down. If the eggs are too expensive, don't buy them. And I know people can say, well, you just can't not buy it. Yes, you can. Actually, you could. Okay? Actually, you could. All right? If you don't like the price of something, just don't buy it. I know that's hard for Americans because, credit done took hold of Americans. And we want it, and we want it now. And I'm not talking about everybody, but the general American, we want it and we want it now. Nobody will wait for stuff. Well, I ain't gonna say nobody, but a lot of us were not trained to wait for stuff. Let's just get back to waiting sometime, y'all. Let's just get back to waiting. Okay? It's gonna be what it's gonna be. But sometimes you gotta wait for your own good. You know? Now, what does all this have to do with Americans and illegals and being born a citizen? I think the people who were born in this country can handle the work. That's what I'm gonna say to y'all. I think the people born in this country can handle the work. I don't mind anybody coming into this country as a legal citizen. I don't mind that. I ain't got no issue with people coming in to enjoy America. I think America's a pretty pretty decent place. Does America have problems? Absolutely. I didn't see it too many times on way too many shows about problem America has to tell you America don't have problems. Of course it got problems, but I like it. It's cool to me. You know, I'm not trying to keep illegals out, but I can't protest or be on the side of people coming in and they doing it in illegal way. Just become a legalized citizen. I just don't see what the big deal is. If you love America and you want to be in America and you went through this whole issue to get over to America, okay? And I don't see why parents, because some people say, well, I was just born here. Well, no, they weren't born here, but they'll say, I was brought over as a little kid. It wasn't even my choice. Now, I'm going to say this. If you're a parent and you bring your kid over here, your kid is like 4, okay? And you brought your kid to a whole other country, man, do something to help your kid become a legal citizen. That's all. Do what you got to do. Now, for me personally, I'm not concerned about your kid the way you would want me to be concerned about your kid, because your kid would be an illegal citizen. All right. When I hear about ICE, y'all, I don't hear nothing bad. Okay. I don't hear nothing bad. There's a group of people out there that rounds up illegal immigrants so they can be deported. How do I hear a sentence like that and hear a bad thing? There's a group of people out there who goes around and rounds up illegal immigrants so they can be deported. Where's the bad part? Now, I've checked out a lot of stuff where they're arguing about these illegal immigrants, y'all. Some people saying the illegal immigrants they're working, they're paying taxes, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're not bothering people and all that type of stuff. I hear stuff like that and I'd be like, okay, and they're still illegal at the end of the day. Why would I be mad that some illegal citizen got picked up and got sent back to their country? How is that an issue? Now, I'm not saying the person did something bad to be kicked out, but the person is an illegal. They're supposed to be kicked out. Now, when you tell me that illegals are getting rounded up and kicked out, I would think an American citizen should look at that and say, well, that's my tax dollars doing a good job. And all these people are, when I hear all the stuff about the illegals, I keep hearing people trying to appeal to the average American so the illegal don't have to deal with the fact that they're illegal. Now, I'm going to just tell y'all this. As a black man, I don't get that. I don't see people appealing for American black men. Well, you guys done had it so rough because we done did this to you. We done did that to you. We should just take it easy on black men. I ain't heard that, y'all. Not on any kind of real scale. Now, have I heard black men say people should take it easy on? I've heard some black men suggest that, but black men still have the understanding that they not. I've heard brothers say, yeah, they should take it. They should give us a break, but we all leave the room with the understanding that they ain't gonna give us a break. So when I see this stuff broadcast, we should think about it from the illegal side, from their perspective. What is there to think about? They're illegal. You don't want black men to do illegal stuff. For the most part, black men respect the laws of the land. And then you tell us we supposed to take interest in people breaking the law? How you make that make sense? You want us to be concerned about people who are literally breaking the law when America has had this whole thing about black men. We need to be perfect when it comes to following laws. If we not perfect, they gonna get us. Okay? You ain't got to tell no 18-year-old the law gonna get you. That's something he gonna come to the understanding of as a black man in America. You get any black man in America and ask him, is the law more than happy to put the food fops on him? I'm pretty sure 100% of them gonna say, yeah, the law will be more than happy to do that. If they can catch me out here in the game messed up, they'll do me in. And they don't care what it's about. It's that simple. Now, shout out to Afro Merchant. He say, but think about the children, Roger. What about the children? You know what, Afro Merchant? I think that's the great answer to the question of what about the children, man. The answer to the question is, what about the children? That is the answer to that question. What about them? You know? Hey, that's the decision they parents made, man. See, y'all, I've accepted that life is not fair. All right? Now, the hard part for other people to deal with the fact is that once I accepted that life ain't fair, that means I don't think it needs to be fair for you either. Which I think is a proper way to think about this stuff, y'all. I think everyone in America should be treated like a black man. Okay? I think everybody in America should be treated like black men. I don't care who you are. If you treat it like black men, you'll get a lot of stuff a lot easier. So when it comes to these children, hey, your parents brought you over here. I understand that wasn't on you because you was a kid. Well, guess what? Life sucks at certain points. And you got to deal with it. There's some wins and there's some losses that come with everything. Just is what it is. Your parents brought you over here. You illegal. You ain't had nothing to do with it. But once you become an adult, now you got to deal with it, man. That's how I look at it. It was your parents' fault when you was a child. Once you're an adult, it's your fault. Because you could have just left and went back to your country. And I heard people making this argument. People are getting deported to a country that they know nothing of. They've never been there before. They don't know the people there. They don't even know where their family is. They said all this type of stuff. And I get it. It's to pull on my heartstrings. You know? And I understand that. And I'm not tripping about the fact that they're trying to pull on my heartstrings. All right? But I hear what people say about these particular situations. And then I go back to, well, if we just treat everybody like a black man, we'll get to the right answer. So how would they treat a black man who had a situation like this come up? They wouldn't care. All right. Now, I even saw somebody tell a story about a black man. Okay. Black man was born to an American citizen who was at a military base. Some guy in the military got somebody pregnant. Baby was born in Germany. Baby grew up, became an adult. Baby was not considered a citizen of anywhere. He wasn't considered to be German because he was born on a American military base. But they was telling a story about, now, you know, I ain't said I caught the whole story. I just heard somebody talking about it. Somebody that on like a major news station or whatever, they were talking about him not being an American citizen, even though he was born on a military base. And shout out to Josh Jesse. Looked like he heard some of that same story. They deported him to Jamaica, and they were saying, well, he don't know nobody from Jamaica. He never been to Jamaica and all that type of stuff, right? Okay, well, this is the thing. So he's just an example of how you do it to a black man. Okay, his daddy was in the military. He got some woman pregnant. Baby born in Germany on an American military base. And I did remember something about them deporting him to Jamaica, right? Okay, cool. So that's how you do a brother, right? That's how you do a brother. Okay, his dad American. He's born on American military base. I would assume that would make him American, but I guess I'm wrong. So what they do, they deported him. Okay. Shout out to Shark Sims. They say his father was Jamaican descent, and went into the army. Okay, so that's why it makes sense that they picked Jamaica as the place. Because y'all heard the father did what he was supposed to do. But I guess that didn't give him no credit. You know what I'm saying? His father not plugged though. See, that's the issue. His father not plugged. So they say, hey, we gonna ship dude to Jamaica. And I get that. I'm not even saying that's right. Because I would think it being born on a military base would be just like being born on American soil. That's what I would think. But I guess I was wrong. So they shipped old boy to Jamaica. They shackled him, put him on a plane, and sent him to Jamaica. Okay, so now I see what America does when the black man in that position. I'm not tripping. Okay. I thought he should have been American because he was born on a military base that was an American military base. But hey, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong. So now my thing is this, y'all. I'm not finna trip about him. If I'm not gonna trip about him, I ain't tripping about the rest of them. We can get somebody else to pick the strawberries, y'all. That's my answer to it. Okay. People talk about the economy is bad. Well, maybe we need some Americans picking strawberries. Wouldn't that help the economy? See, I don't see it the way other people see it, y'all. They say the economy is bad when you can't get a job. But they say they got all these jobs that Americans won't take. Now, again, I don't believe there's a job that Americans won't take. I don't believe that. I seen too many people willing to do anything. Okay, real talk. As long as they don't go against their morals, they willing to do the work. Heck, it's people out here working and they doing stuff against their morals. Okay? Hence the phrase, you want to do something strange for some change. It's people that do stuff that goes against their morals. So I just don't believe that there's a bunch of Americans that just won't take a legal job. Okay? It's just, let me shout out to Shark saying, he say, tell all the illegal immigrants who come over here to pick the strawberries since they have so much to say, but they won't. Uh-oh. Shark shooting shots out here, man. Tell all the legal, y'all hear that? The legal, not illegal, the legal. Tell all the legal immigrants who come over here to pick the strawberries since they have so much to say, but they won't. Ain't that about nothing? He's shooting shots out here, y'all. He's shooting shots. Now, I don't see nothing wrong with them picking some strawberries, y'all. Okay? I don't see nothing wrong with it. All right? I don't see nothing wrong with it. Okay? Pick them strawberries and do it with a smile on your face. Because if you want to be an American and live the American dream, man, get on that strawberry farm and dream. Just pick some strawberries while you do it. I don't see the big deal in picking some strawberries. Would I have taken a job picking strawberries when I was 18? Absolutely. Now, I might take it to this day. I just have no idea what the pay is to pick some strawberry. I got no clue. I've never found the strawberry farm in the Platte. I've never found that. So, maybe that's a California thing, but, I don't see an issue in picking some strawberries. It's not a bad thing to me. Or any other particular food. If you're going to pay me, I ain't got no issue picking something. Okay? If you pay me a decent market wage, would I pick cotton to this day? Yeah. And I know that the ideal of picking cotton really messes with some black folks' head. My thing is the cotton wasn't the issue. Slavery was the issue. Picking the cotton for free was the problem. Once you resolve the picking for free problem, I don't see it as an issue anymore. So when I pick cotton, yeah, the price right. I ain't got no issue with that. I'll do it right now. You pay me 6 figures to pick some cotton, I'll pick some cotton right now. Picking cotton don't go against my morals. Picking cotton for free goes against my morals. You know, because I know that might hit some black people the wrong way. This nigga just said he'll go pick some cotton. Picking cotton was never the problem. It was picking cotton for free that was the issue. Okay, picking the cotton itself don't bother me. Now, shout out to the righteous teacher. He says Americans won't do it for the rate they pay the illegals, so it would cause the price to double. The righteous teacher, we be fine, man. Everything settles out, man. Everything settles out. They're gonna up the price if they have Americans do it, and we just won't pay the price until the price comes down. Everything will settle out. You know, see, this ain't like, now I say maybe like in insurance. You know what I'm saying? Insurance can drive up the price to stuff. Insurance drives up medical costs. It's not like the medical field where you could just drive up the cost because of insurance. No, you got to sell them strawberries. At the end of the day, you know, you can only sell for what people are willing to pay. So the price may spike for you know, price could spike for a hot second. We just ignore the strawberries till the strawberries come down. That's all. And we good. Them strawberries gonna spoil, man. You're gonna have to sell them. It just is what it is. So you're gonna have to bring that price down to what we, the public, believes is a satisfactory price, and then we're gonna pay that. And it's just gonna be that way. So guess what? At the end of the day, the farmer gonna have to just take it on the chin. Okay, the farmer's just gonna have to take it on the chin. Truth trying to say, seem to me, he needs to get his wife and mistress. Truth telling to say, seem to me, he needs to get his wife and mistress on the strawberry strip. Hoes can have value in other areas of production. Hey, man, I ain't got no problem with the hoes picking the strawberries, as long as they wash them before I eat them. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I'm going to do that. As long as I wash them before I eat them, we good. She could do something strange for some change. She could definitely pick some strawberries, okay? It's all good, man. It's all good. Shout out to Circadian Rhythm, man. He say wages and working conditions. Hey, man, that's something the employer needs to figure out. It just is what it is to me, man. Look, if you're in America, you own a company, you got to figure it out. That's the name of the game. You got to figure it out. You got to figure out how to pay your employees while making a profit at the same time. All right? Get your own kids to do it. Makes a lot of sense. Okay? It makes a lot of sense. Just is what it is. You know? Now, Circadian Rhythm says pick the strawberries and one water break, no pension, dental, and medical. Hey, man, ain't nobody saying you got to pick the strawberries forever. You know, you can pick them for a time and then, you know, you can move into something else, y'all. Yeah, y'all, we as employees, I'm going to say this, as an employee, you got to think like a free agent, man. You got to think like a free agent. You can take a bad job until you find the better job. But we're not stuck in one place. And that's the thing, y'all. We sometimes we think about it like we stuck in one place. We're never stuck. We never stuck. Some people can say, well, what if they gonna pay you 12 hours a day for 5 days a week? You get all this overtime or whatever. Now, something like that is designed to keep you stuck there. Yeah, okay, that's cool. But every time I take a day off, it's because I gotta go to a job interview. I'm never stuck. This is good for the moment. And that's all it's for. It's just for the moment, y'all. I'm telling you, my daddy told me back in the day, man, you're only good as your last day. That's what happened when it comes to work. You're only good as your last day. I'm never gonna forget that, man. Never gonna forget that. You are only good as your last day. Once that last day is over with, you don't know what's gonna happen Monday. It's been so many people I've heard about who had great jobs. Monday came, they showed up to work, and that department wasn't even there anymore. Okay. A few months back, y'all, I mentioned something I seen on the news. I forgot exactly where it was, but it was like a whole branch of a major, I'll just say a major soda company. They shut down the plant or something. And they was telling people as they was coming to work that, man, yeah, this plant shut down. We ain't doing this no more. These people literally driving to go to work. And they had managers out there telling people, ain't no work no more. It's over with. Okay. Now, if my memories, well, I'm going to say, I think this was, well, I guess maybe I should say, or maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know, y'all, but it was on the news. So I'm going to say I believe it was a branch of Pepsi. I believe it was a branch of Pepsi. And I think Pepsi is like the number 2 selling soft drink in the world right now. But folks came to work, and because of certain situations, folks had to be told, just, hey, man, you don't have a job here no more. It's over with. No warning, no nothing. Now, I'm not saying something crazy didn't happen. Maybe it was something just totally, maybe nothing could be done about it, whatever the case is, but they ain't the only company I done heard that did this. I done heard about a gang of companies that have simply closed departments down, and they tell you, and you find out when you get to work. Well, what you thought was work. You was going to work, but you never worked because there was no work. Branch was shut down. So that happens to people, which reminds me of what my daddy say. You're only good as your last day. That's it. You know, we take it for granted the job gonna be there, but there is no guarantee. You know, but my main man H Revels is coming up, so I'm gonna go ahead and give him the mic. What's going on, Mr. Revels? How you doing?
Hey, hello, Roger. Good morning to you. Shout out to you. It's very interesting that you're covering this subject. This is in the news headline a topic for present day. But at any rate, I just wanted to start off by saying that denaturalization has always been on the table. I looked at the videos. I saw where you posted a video about the injunction that was lifted, so President Trump can move forward with his interpretation of the 14th Amendment. They talked about denaturalization. They talked about you had a guy who was a ICE agent. Interestingly enough, he's Hispanic, and he was talking about some of the issues he saw as a border patrol ICE agent, something like that. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to emphasize that. People are acting like this denaturalization thing is new. It's not. It's always been on the table. If you lie on your documents to get your, the green card or your residency card or any of those visa applications, and you lie, these are official government documents. So if you perjure yourself and you leave out information, and somebody conducts a review or an update, and they just happen to find it, you are always subject to deportation, denaturalization, even if you already have your citizenship. And the fastest way to become denaturalized is if you commit a criminal offense. A lot of people don't notice, but folks were getting sent back. They've been getting sent back for, every month somebody's getting denaturalized and getting sent back to their original country. I call it, I'm not going to say home country, I'll just say origin country. I remember looking at this, and I forget which research that I was doing, but there were about 100 people who were Nigerians from Nigeria. They sent them straight back to Nigeria. That was just in 1 month alone, and it's because they all came up on the list for some type of criminal offense. I won't go into the offenses because they were all multiple. It was mostly fraudulent, and some of it was actual like crimes. All of it was crimes, but some of it was like violent crimes. But yeah. So the denaturalization thing has always been on the table. I don't even know why that would be a concept or some new concept for anybody, because if you are just got your citizenship and you break the law or you lied on your documents in order to obtain that citizenship, that was never an issue. That's always been on the table. I talked about that for a little bit, but I'll go ahead and let you respond, and then I'll get to the other points. But
Well, I had to dip out, so I didn't even hear your full opening statement because I didn't have my volume turned up where I could hear you. But I would say this: hearing about people possibly losing citizenship. So, see, as a person, again, who's accepted that life is not fair, if someone can give you citizenship, then they can take it away. As a black man, I get that. Okay, that's why I don't need you to give me nothing. I get it myself. You know, because if you can give it to me, you can take it from me. And if you go to somebody else's country and they give you citizenship, I would have never even thought the concept that you can't lose citizenship. That makes sense. That just simply makes sense at the end of the day. You got to do how other people operate when you in their house.
Well, I mean, it tells you right there in the document. So I've had to do some of this paperwork for, for security clearances for some of my guys when I was in, and it tells you right there, like you have to list everything, anything and everything, even stuff you think is unimportant, because if it populates anywhere, then it's because we have people who are not citizens that serve in the military, and they do that as a benefit to obtain their citizenship. That's one of the reasons you have non-citizens join, and then that's one of the fastest ways for citizenship for them. And then sometimes they get in trouble. They'll kind of get in some issues or something, or whatever it is they do, some type of criminal offense, and that ceases and desists. That ceases that process. So that's kind of how I know about it. And then I don't have any family members, but I've heard of issues and stories, and then you got all this stuff all over the internet. Like I don't know how people are confused that denaturalization was always on the table. The only people who can't be denaturalized are native-born Black Americans, and I'll just say, kind of clear it up. I'll just say freedmen descendants. We can't be denaturalized, and the Native Americans, the indigenous population. If you really wanted to go back and do some stuff, I guess you could hit up all these white folks with their citizenship. But what people are going to do is they're not going to do anything retroactive. It's going to be moving forward. This is how we're going to do it. So if you've been in the country since the 1600s and you just happen to be like one of the descendants of the Plymouth colony, then yeah, your citizenship's not going anywhere. They're not going to screw over white people. That's not going to happen. But there's really only a few people who can't be touched.
Well, when I was speaking about denaturalizing somebody, I was talking about somebody who came to the country and became naturalized as a citizen. Of course, you can be denaturalized because you're not from here. So that only makes sense to me at the end of the day. Now, folks who've been here a while, you ain't got nothing to worry about. If you're already an American citizen, you're an American citizen. Even with the new stuff that they're bringing up, they're not fighting to stop somebody who's already an American citizen. They're fighting to stop people who are not already American citizens to become citizens based on how they were born.
Yeah, and presumably abusing the 14th Amendment. Specifically the wording underneath the 14th Amendment. And that phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and the states in which you reside, is really, when I was reading it, I was doing research and studying, I was like, because years ago, I remember this coming up, even before. Immigration has always been an issue. It's not going to get fixed because Congress and politicians and even corporations don't want to fix it. They want to be able to take advantage of cheap illegal labor, right? They want to be able to take advantage of that cheap migrant labor. So if you fix all of that and close all the loopholes, then you can't. So even if you have people come in and do like seasonal work, come in, harvest crops, and then go back to their origin country, that still has to be regulated, which actually there is a system to regulate that. It's under the E-Verify system, seasonal work, temporary visas, and all this other stuff today that's authorized. So you would have to check that. But if somebody doesn't have those proper documents and you just let them work, well, then you're violating the law and they're violating the law. So it's a lot of people. So you have U.S. citizens violating the law. You have people who are not citizens violating the law. And at the upshot of all of this is that this is one thing I know in the United States of America as a Black man. And this is how I have to look at life, through the lens of a Black man in the United States of America. Ain't no law in this country, no statute, no regulation, no policy that a Black man can violate and get away with. Ain't nothing that we can do and we're not going to be punished for it, which is why the majority of Black men are not criminals, even though that's the narrative, right? The stereotypical anti-Black narrative. So if that, and I look at it like this, for me, it's very simple. If all of that applies to me, then it applies to everybody else too. So it's just very simple for me.
And I'm gonna say, real talk. Any job that an illegal has, it's just a job they're keeping away from a black man. Now, I would, because of this particular situation, I can expand that out to an American. Because once everything's been said, America is my country, so I'm gonna be America first. Now, I know some black people is hating on Trump right now, but what I will say is this: based on all the stuff I'm looking at, I can at least say, at least in this particular case, it sounds like he at least attempting to be America first. I can't be mad at a president that believes America should come first. I think every president should believe America should come first. You know, I know technically that's not a job requirement, but it should be. You wouldn't get my vote unless you can show that you America first. And at least in this particular situation, I don't understand how you can paint Trump as a person who's not being America first. Because his whole thing about this birthright, we ain't just gonna give it out, not widely to anybody. Now, again, y'all, I've said I don't have no problem with you being born here and you being recognized as an American citizen. I ain't got no issue with that. I think this turns into an issue because you got people who done got their kids here and their kids have become citizens and they're not citizens. And my thing is, we could just send their parents home. I don't have no issue with that. You know, I don't have this heartstring being tugged at me because somebody got to leave. Now, if your baby is a citizen, he can take his citizenship or her citizenship with them and come on back later. They still citizens at the end of the day, so they can get in.
Yeah,
But the parents got to go.
Yeah, well, he's trying to stop that too. See, again, the literal application of the 14th Amendment, any person born or naturalized in the United States is a citizen, right? Any person born on U.S. soil, and I'm paraphrasing here, but that's essentially the gist of the 14th Amendment. Any person born on U.S. soil or naturalized is a citizen, right?
But hold on. This is what I think the issue is, though. The issue is that people are coming over here to get so their child can be a citizen. But the issue is that America is taking care of their parents. See, I think if America actually took a stance and said, okay, we caught you, get out. And you say, well, my child is a citizen, though. And as America, we just say, okay, that's fine. You want your child to stay or you want your child to leave with you? And just keep it moving. Now, see, if you did something like that, you don't have this huge rush for people to bring their kids over so they can be born into America. Because the thing is, they'll be separated from their children.
Well, even that's improper application of the 14th Amendment, though. Even the children are not necessarily, technically citizens because the parents are not citizens. Just because your child is born on the U.S. soil, that has nothing to do. Think about the
argument is. I'm saying that, but that's what they're arguing about because they're saying that no, that's how you become an American citizen. That's one of the ways to become an American citizen, being born on American soil.
Roger, do you know?
Hold on. What I'm saying though, there's an illegal immigrant issue attached to this. Because if you kill off, we gonna let the parents stay just because the child is legal. Most of the stuff that we're talking about is already stopped. Because who's gonna come over here and then have a baby be an American with the chance of them getting put out? Or you gonna leave your baby behind? Who's doing that?
Well, people are doing that. They remember. Look, you forget when that whole migrant, flooding. What do you call it? When Biden under the Biden-Harris administration, they were flooding the border or flooding the country with migrants. Babies were being dumped across the. They had videos and film of babies being dumped across the the border wall. They would, traffickers were just dumping them across the wall, and the idea was like, look, nobody's going to let this baby, just pass away. So somebody's gonna find. Then now good on them for dumping them in an area where they knew that the border patrol was gonna come along and pick them up. And they say okay, and they would leave them with a number, and they would say, hey, I have family in the USA. That's what they were doing. So yeah, they were abandoning these children.
Well, Okay, but this is the thing though. You got family. You're not a citizen. Your baby, you already born. You're not a citizen, man. You got to go.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. Even okay, so let's again.
Well, let me address this real quick because this fits right in here. The righteous teacher said, "What if the child is 5 or 6 years old, Roger? Man, what's it got to do with the fact they're not a citizen? See, you either are a citizen or you're not a citizen. My thing is, I ain't got no issue on whether you are or not. I am one of the people, quote unquote, lucky enough to be a citizen. Okay, I was born in America. I'm an American citizen. Just is what it is. That's how the cards played for me. They didn't play that way for everybody else. So if you're not a citizen, you're not a citizen, and I'm gonna treat you like you're not a citizen. So even as H. Rebel was talking about people dumping babies over here, only thing I'm gonna see is the baby a citizen. Because if the baby ain't no citizen, the baby going back.
Okay, so the baby can be born on U.S. soil, and then consistent with the 14th Amendment, now that baby's a citizen, right? Okay, so again, the baby can, if you want to say that kid's a citizen, now you just leave it with family. You just leave it with family and you go.
I wouldn't have no issue with that. But if if I see a random baby near the border, I know that baby's not a citizen. That baby got to leave.
Well, Trump's look. So the way Trump is applying it, he's shutting it down always. He doesn't care if your baby's born on U.S. soil. He doesn't care if your baby's already 5 years. If the kid's a toddler, if you got family,
Trump is arguing. Trump is arguing for stuff to be applied. It's not being applied at this point. He's arguing about what can be applied. So right now, it's still if you're born on U.S. soil, you're an American citizen.
Well, okay, so minus the people who brought that case forward, and I want to say it was 30 days from when they lifted the injunction. You already attached the video, so we're talking about the injunction now, right? When they lifted that national, what do they call it, universal injunction, that was put in place by the courts. They had 30 days, and now it's going to be applied. So whatever that day is, let's just say the 10th of we're in July now, so let's say the 10th of August. That effective date, doesn't matter whether your kid is born on U.S. soil or not, they're not a citizen. And that's going to be in effect for the remainder of Trump's term. Now, that's an executive order, right? You can rule through executive order, but the executive order goes away once Trump goes away. So now, so anybody else coming back in, say the Democrats, pop back in and they come in the next election, they could reinstate that whole, they could just revoke what Trump put in place. And this is going to restart the problem all over again.
Well, my thing is, eventually you're going to have to simply address that 14th Amendment. You know what I'm saying?
That's the whole point, though, Roger.
Ain't no getting around.
Or the Republicans, Congress is not going to address it. The executive office is not going to address it. It's only been addressed through the only way it's been addressed is through the Supreme Court, and basically. That the injunction, as a matter of fact, they didn't even address it. That injunction had nothing to do with the 14th Amendment. They didn't. All they did was say that Trump's executive order is not is essentially effective. They didn't even address the 14th Amendment. They addressed his executive order, the injunction that was against him. That's all they did.
I do think that's what the American people got to recognize is that everybody's trying to skate around, not addressing that 14th Amendment. But at the end of the day, if you're going to resolve this issue, you're going to have to address. Ain't no getting around it. You're going to have to do something about it. I don't know if they're going to have to amend the Constitution to put it out there what y'all want as a people. And, and maybe that's just the right thing to go about it. Let the people decide what we want. Because my thing is this. I ain't worried about illegals. I got my own American problems to deal with. I'm just not concerned with illegal. So my thing is, if you're illegal and you get put out, I'm fine with it. I'm fine under any scenario you get put out. I don't care about your story as an illegal. I don't care if you was a baby dumped across the wall. I don't care if you was brought here when you was 4 and you 38. I just don't care.
Okay. I mean,
yeah. It doesn't bother me for you to be gone. Because that's just another job that opened up for an American.
Yeah. So this is actually part of the problem is that, again, the issue is not taking care of Americans first. You got homeless, you have people who have, mental and physical disabilities. Look, you're always going to have problems in the United States, but you got to clear up at least 98 to 99% of those problems. And then you can start bringing in other people to add to the fabric of America that benefits America. See, that's the issue. When you do what the Democrats did just a few years ago and flood the zone with so many people, then all you're doing is creating is problems. And you saw those black neighborhoods. The first place they dumped them was in black neighborhoods, right? You have black neighborhoods that were already severely resource deprived and stressed, and weren't getting the funding they were supposed to get anyway. And then they dumped a bunch of people who are not from there, who are not the culture, not the race, don't have, didn't even speak the language, and then it just added to the problems that already existed, and it created a whole lot of problems. So the way immigration is supposed to work is take care of your citizens first, then you bring in people to fill in the gaps. I explained it like this. It's very simple to me. You got 100 slots, right? Only 60 Americans fill those slots, and you fill them all up, and then you still need those 40 other slots filled. That's where you bring in the immigrants, and you bring them in legally. And there's no issue and problem because Americans got squared away, and now you bring in other people because you still need more folks to fill up those positions, whatever it is those positions are, and you just fill them up with immigrants. Nobody has any issue with that. You see what I'm saying? It's when you flood the zone with an excess number of people, and then you can't even and then you start making excuses for why you can't take care of the people who are already here, who actually are citizens.
Yeah. Let me read this right here. I don't know if we got some beef in the chat, or I don't know if they joking or if it's just beef. Shout out to Debonair brother. He said they came for the illegals and I ignored it. They came for black lesbians and I ignored it. They came for LGBT like Floyd Thompson. I ignored it. Then they came for black men. That's why I say maybe I don't know if this is beef or they joking with each other. But shout out to Debonair brother and shout out to Floyd Thompson. Now my thing is, y'all, I'm not gonna quote unquote say that I'm gonna ignore. Yeah, he say he trolling. Debonair brother say he trolling. I'm not gonna say that that I'm gonna ignore this particular situation. What I am gonna say is my side is I'm not gonna fight for you to be illegal. That it don't make sense for me to fight as an American citizen for an American to be okay breaking the law. Now I say if the law is bad, we need to change it. I can rock with that. But you know what I'm saying? But somebody who's not from this country, for me to get on their side and say y'all shouldn't break. Now if it's an American citizen, I mean, I get it. There's a reason I could take their side if I really don't believe that law should exist. I can get that, but that's a citizen. For you to not be a citizen and me come and say anything to help an illegal immigrant break American laws, that just don't make sense to me at the end of the day.
Well, so again, so yeah, that would be the exceptions. It's citizens, and so the citizens have basis for their argument when their life, liberty, property, and pursuit of happiness is being impeded, right? So as a citizen, you have an argument for all of that. Non-citizens, you don't have that. And they're even arguing, and it was a famous case that's ongoing right now. I think his name is Juan Gabriel Abriego or something like that. He's the guy that got deported to El Salvador. He went to that prison. They call it CCOT, where they have all the gang members in El Salvador. They went around El Salvador collecting up all the gang members, put it in this maximum security prison, and he was there for a minute. And basically, but the reason they got rid of him was that he was illegal, and they swear that he committed some crimes while he was in the United States. And then they brought him back from El Salvador into the United States, only to basically send him through a trial so they can send him back out of the country again. And the argument through all of that was, well, he didn't get due process. The United States just deported him simply because they just took him off the street and sent him straight to El Salvador without due process. Okay, so the outcome is still going to be the same. They brought him all the way back, made a big fuss about it to give him his quote unquote due process, run him through the court system, and then they're just going to send him back to El Sal.
Well, you know what?
Either way, he's going back to his country of origin.
I'm still not with that. If you get due process if you're not a citizen. To me, my understanding is still a citizen gets due process. I need to know what that is so I can look into that more. Because my stance is citizens get due process. American citizens.
Due process is very simple. It's You being treated fairly in a court of law.
I'm saying I don't necessarily have an understanding that a non-American citizen gets due process. To me, that's something for American citizens.
I hear you, Roger. But I'm telling you, people are, look, here's the problem. Again, the language of this is the problem with the framers of the Constitution, especially when they did the amendments. They wrote it in very ambiguous. They wrote it with ambiguous language, so you could interpret it multiple ways, and they did that with intent. Now they knew how it was gonna play out in their day when they wrote that language, and for the 50 to 60 years thereafter. 100 years or 150 years later, now how is it going to play out? They're like, look, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just dealing with what we're dealing with today. And if the language needs to be changed or updated, well, that's what the amendments are for. That's what legislation is for.
I mean,
by the way,
that's true. But I'm gonna say, when you're talking about framing America, you're talking about America, which means you're an American will get due process. They ain't talking about other folks.
I get all of that, Roger, but that's why they had to bring back that Garcia dude, because the argument was y'all sent him out of the country without due process, even though he's not a citizen. He showed up illegally. He did a whole bunch of other stuff wrong, but it doesn't matter. He was here, so you got to give him his due process. So they're going, basically all of this is just a dog and pony show to send him back to El Salvador.
My thing is just send him back, call it a day. He's not a citizen. He don't get due process. Keep it moving. Now, see, my thing is Americans, we get brought into stuff that don't actually matter, because we hearing stuff about, well, this person hasn't done anything wrong. They've respected the laws. They're legal. They don't need to do anything wrong. I don't need an illegal to commit a crime to send them home.
No, that was technically the first thing they did wrong. Is they crossed the crossed the U.S. border without authorization. That's the first thing they did wrong.
Well, I'm just saying though that we American citizens, we get all this stuff where they're trying to, people who control media trying to get you to think in a particular circumstance. I don't need to know your story. You're an illegal. You're not supposed to be here. That's just the end of the story. See, I done did stuff. I told you I done worked security before, right? So if I'm doing security, I'm at a location, I meet a random person that's not supposed to be there. I don't ask too many questions. You got to go. That's it. You can't show me a proper ID. You can't give me the right name. Somebody can't say how you supposed to be there. I ain't got to ask no questions. You got to go.
So
it's all the story.
I agree with you, Roger. Yeah, everything, again, black man. Look, if you look at everything through the lens of a black man in the United States of America, then it's cut and dry. There is no gray area. There's, people don't have any doubt when it comes to black men. They do not. So, but when it comes to other people, non-black people, and then people with special interest groups and all this other stuff, now you want to start talking technicalities. We want to start talking about, well, the wording really doesn't say that. You can interpret it this way. You can interpret it that way. You could, there's no confusion when it comes to us. So my challenge and my demand to everybody is have that same clarity for everybody else that you have for black men. I don't see the problem.
Well, my thing is the clarity is already there. You just have politicians playing games, and that's how people should look at it. Yeah, I got politicians that are playing games. I cannot trust this politician to do what the law says the politician is supposed to do. Therefore, I need to get rid of this politician. People need to start making it personal about the person who's running the show. You're the politician who was elected to be a representative of the people. If you will not do your job, you need to go.
Yeah,
it's cut and dry to me.
Yeah, those people just get voted out. That's people make the argument there should be term limits on Congress. No,
they have term limits on everybody.
Well, we do have term limits. There's term limits on the president. There's term limits on Congress.
The issue we have a problem is everybody don't have a term. You should only be able to serve one term for any office. Period. No one should get a second term, because when you do a second term, now you're going into special interest. When there's one term, you just do for the people, because you ain't gonna be back here next year anyway.
Yeah,
you won't be back here in 2 years. You won't be back here in 4 years. It's that one term and you done. And those are the people who should be running the country. Come in there for one term and get out. So I'm all for term. And I think one term should be it. I don't care what the position is. One term, that's enough. Get out of here. Okay, you did what you could do. We appreciate it. Go and get up out of here. Run for something else if you want to stay in politics. Run for a different office. Maybe they'll elect you into a different office. You did a good job over here. Maybe they'll elect you over there. But you need to get out.
I hear you on that. That way you could be a career politician, but in different positions.
Well, the thing is so you cannot develop so much special interest that you come before the country.
Exactly, which is why you get these senators or Congress people in position for 40 plus years, and you look at their district and it's a mess. Maxine Waters, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Because they quit serving the people in the first 1 or 2 terms, and then after that, everything is just about getting reelected and just doing just enough to keep your name recognition, and then making sure you do what the corporate interests and lobbyists want you to do. It's not about helping the people at all. Now, you can have a career in politics if you start off at a smaller level. You call it like alderman, city alderman. And then you work your way up to on the city council, then you become mayor to lieutenant governor, governor, and then eventually, you see what I'm saying? Eventually, you get to Congress, House of Representatives, senator, and then you make it a presidency or something like that. See, that's how you can have but in every term, at every point, you got voted in, and you only served one term. I can get that. I can get behind that. The thing is that that's not how it's playing out.
It's not playing out that way, because this is what I'm saying. The American people, we let too much nonsense slide. The American people should only want one term, because that's what serves America. When you can get more than one term, it's just too many ways to serve yourself. And I don't need a politician looking to serve himself. I need a politician looking to serve the country, or the city, or the state, or whatever it is that they're supposed to be in charge of.
I got you.
I need you to serve that thing, not your personal interests. I don't care nothing about your personal interests. If your personal interests take precedent, just don't go into politics. That's how I look at it. Now, shout out to Rael. He says there is political jurisdiction and territorial jurisdiction. 14th Amendment is political jurisdiction because it came about due to political wrangling in Congress. And I'm going to read what he said right behind that. He also says that's what court is for, to determine their status. Once their status is determined to be unlawful entry, then an American can put you out. Now I'm gonna say to that, I'm cool. Just put them out. I think the major issue with immigrants is people crying over, and it's just sob stories at the end of the day. People crying over the fact that you got some baby. Well, she had a baby in this country. The baby's a citizen. Okay, cool. I understand that. You got to leave. You're not a citizen. We know you're not a citizen. Okay? See, none of this would have came up if they just took that approach. You're not a citizen. So you got to go. It's that simple at the end of the day. Now, you can leave the baby here, and what happens to your baby is just what happened to your baby. Now, why would I do it that way? Because, yes, the baby could leave. You could take your baby and leave, and then your baby could come back when the baby's like 18, 19, 20, whenever the baby's old enough to come back on his own. Cool. But why would I cut it off right at the beginning? Because it discourages people from coming over here just to have a baby. Because you may have a baby, and you'll never see that baby again messing with me.
Yeah, that's dangerous too, though, because it creates these dual alliances and allegiances, and it's all of that creates a problem.
You ain't gonna know your baby. Your baby's gonna be raised as an American. You just had a baby that you see. That's what I'm saying, man. You got to be cut off.
That's only if the baby stays in the United States. What if that baby goes back to, let's say, Brazil?
I'm saying
Brazil, and then age 21 wants to come back as a U.S. citizen, which they have the legal right to do based on U.S. citizenship.
But this is the issue with that, though. I can't tell them they can't take their own baby. It's their baby. It's their property at the end of the day. It's their baby. If they want to take their baby with them, I don't really have a good reason to not allow them to take their baby with them.
I'm just telling you. Okay, a child born in the United States by people who are not citizens. Okay, so you're giving them, honestly, Roger. In a way, you give them some wiggle room there. I don't even like that.
Well, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but you'd have to do something to figure out how to close that up. But the main, I think it wouldn't happen as much if the main issue was the fact that we're willing to put out parents. One of our main issues, you have somebody who come over and have a baby, and then we let their parents stay because quote unquote that's their parents. They parents are illegals. Why they ain't gotta go?
Nobody was necessarily letting the parents stay. The parents were just staying and finding opportunities for themselves, so that way, under the table, right?
Man, you got to go.
Yeah, I get all of that. Well, I'm just saying. So, the way you're talking about it, you're still giving them latitude by allowing them, even though the baby's born on your cell, you still give them latitude by allowing that kid to stay. Now, if they take that kid and raise that kid in another country, now you got to do it. That kid could be raised in China. Next thing you know, kid comes back. Now is a U.S. citizen, but loyal to another country. That was the whole point. Okay, so this whole point, as it goes back to citizenship, actually came about as a result of who was loyal to who. The very first case was in 1898, Wong Kim Ark, right? His name keeps popping up, and I looked the case up and I actually did more research on it. Now his name is popping up all over the place. 1898 case that was decided by the United States Supreme Court. He was born to non-citizens, non-Chinese citizens. They were working in the United States. They were allowed to work and they were allowed to live, but they were not citizens because they were subjects of the Chinese emperor at that time in the 1890s, right? That being said, he was declared a non-citizen. He went to China for a visit to visit relatives, came back. They're like, you ain't a citizen. We're not letting you back in. He sued. And that's how we got this whole birthright citizenship nonsense to begin with. From the 1865 all the way up to 1898, no one had any question about it because we knew it was for the descendants of enslaved people who was formerly enslaved, and they had to come up with a way to make sure that black people were recognized as citizens. Everybody knew and understood that.
Well, my thing is they was playing some shady games because they could have did that when they first did the amendment, and they didn't choose to do that. So my thing is there's nothing written into the Constitution that's an accident. They could have just made it plain. They didn't want to make it plain because at the end of the day, it was still a sentiment about we had to let these niggas fight so we can keep the country together. We still mad at these niggas, and we still don't want these niggas to be citizens. That was a thing that was going on across the board when it comes to white folks at that time. Now, I'm not going to say it was every individual white person, but collectively, white people did not want black folks to be citizens, even though we had to come say they behind and win the war. They still didn't want us to be citizens.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that.
The 14th Amendment gives a lot of good clarification that they really didn't want us to be citizens. But let me let Rael get the flow since it came up. You got it, Rael.
Peace, Roger. Peace of the panel. Peace of the chat. I remember being on your show a few months back talking about this, maybe about a month and a half. And I was having a back and forth with Uru about it, and I kept saying, like, we have to keep it in the proper perspective so people don't keep trying to take us all off into the emotional argument. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are only for Black Americans, period. That's just the bottom line. It is not supposed to be attached to any other group of people, okay? Civil rights civil rights legislation was used to attach the benefits that were supposed to go to the freedmen to other groups of people, women, LGBTQ, all these different variations of people, illegal immigrants. Like, that was not what these amendments were for, you know? And so anybody that's trying to make that argument is making a very erroneous argument, because especially a Black politician, if a Black politician does not understand the importance of the Reconstruction Amendments, they should never ever run for office again. Like that I mean, that is, you cannot not know the purpose of those amendments. And so, for example, when you look at the Civil Rights Bill, I think the Voting Rights Act of 1964, that was a completely unnecessary legislation because we already had that right. We already had that, you know, and through the Reconstruction Amendments. And so, what was happening was we were being denied the right. It wasn't that we didn't have it. We were constantly being denied it through things like, in terms of the black code, the poll tax, and literacy tests, and all. If your granddad, if your parents were in slavery, you couldn't vote. That type of thing. But let's be clear: these amendments specifically are for black people, which is why so many of these groups of people are really reacting so hostile, because they're seeing that they don't have the same black Americans don't have the same status as them, and so they've been using the things that were supposed to be attributed to us only. Now, if you want to pass some other legislation for other groups of people and all of that, and that's all fine and well, that's what you decide to do, that's what happens, cool. But they were utilizing the stuff based off of our experience, our struggle, to not just get a place in this country on a basic level, but they were trying to usurp our position, and in most instances become white adjacent, and then supplant us, and then talk crap to us, you know. And so when they saw that a lot of black people were not going to support, this stuff, when they was getting these ICE raids and stuff like that, then they want to come with a lot of the guilt trip type stuff. But you can even go back to some of the people in the past. I forget the guy's name, but he basically said he was Hispanic. He was basically saying, like, well, we have no desire to be in alignment with the black man type stuff. So, and it's interesting that a lot of these people were able to use the stuff that really applies to us with the support of black politicians who are basically selling black people out with this nonsense. Because when you have Kamala Harris speak before the Freedmen's Bank, now that is nobody else but us speaking before the Freedmen's Bank, basically saying it's going to be open to illegal immigrants and LGBTQ. Like, you're really just thumbing the nose in the face of black people's collective experience, and why that specific bank is really off limits to other groups of people. And so this conversation has been needed to be had, because what a lot of black peoples are recognizing is that their political leadership is very instrumental in selling them out, to get their own individual position, while basically leaving black people isolated on an island.
Yeah, a political island, and it's a very bad thing, but it's something that really needs to be recognized. And I would tell you, it's all over the TV. Every time, people are making some type of argument to quote unquote help the illegal immigrants out, they start saying all this stuff about trying to pull at your heartstrings. And my thing is, just from a realistic standpoint, man, I'm American, man. Why do you think I'm concerned about some illegal immigrant? I'm American. I have no interest in illegal immigrants in any kind of way. I don't believe the economy is going to collapse because we ran out of illegal immigrants to employ. I think things are going to adjust the way they need to. If you are running a company such as a strawberry farm and you got to start paying actual Americans, I don't see what the problem is. I get you may try to hike up the strawberries to a certain amount. People ain't gonna pay for it. You want to have to sell it at the price that you can sell it for, and everything's gonna adjust. I don't see where black people lose in any of these scenarios.
Yeah, so the farmers and those other industries, they're still gonna make money. it's just basically they want to keep the max amount of money, and by figuring out ways to cheat everybody else instead of paying fair market wages, right? But to Rael's point, as it relates to, you don't see black politicians fighting to actually enforce the laws that are on the books for black Americans. You know, we know the Reconstruction Amendments 13, 14, and 15 were written specifically for black people. The 1866 Civil Rights Act for black Americans, again, the formerly enslaved population, right? And there has been outside of the Reconstruction era, and maybe you can make the argument going into the early, well, yeah, outside of the Reconstruction era, you don't have any black politicians outside of that doing anything to make sure that black people were actually getting the rights that by virtue of the Constitution and legislation. Again, remember in the 14th Amendment, it's not just due process, it's not just citizenship, it's also equal protection of the laws of the United States. So those are the three main things that are covered. There's other stuff in the 14th Amendment, but those are the three main talking points, not talking about, three main points of legislation of the 14th Amendment. Citizenship, due process, and equal protection of the laws, none of which has ever been fully applied or emphasized or fought for to make sure, or enforced to make sure that black people, black men specifically, get all the rights that they're supposed to get by virtue of citizenship. It's never happened. You know, and Rael's right. Politicians, they're the black ones, all they do is just sell us out. That's all they do. I don't even, if I see a black politician, I used to actually look at their platforms to see what they were about and what policies that they actually implemented to empower the black population, and they see if they progress. You can't find anything today, anything. There is no person who claims any kind of black lineage, whether it's African, Caribbean, FBA, anything that's in position today that has done anything to empower black people. You can't find it anywhere. You can't find it. I'll take the racist white man. I can get something out of him before I can get it out of a black politician. I am not.
Yeah,
well,
that's why.
Did they not get this? Did they not get civil rights legislation out of Lyndon Johnson? Openly racist.
I mean, we get what we get because it had to be done. That's the unfortunate truth of it, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say that's why I continue to preach that information is more valuable than presentation, because somebody can look like they on your side and not actually be on your side. But if you don't actually pay attention to the information, you know, the presentation will make you think they're for you all day long. You know,
Yeah,
like I said. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Ron's actually right. We did not need the Civil Rights Act 1964 or the Voting Rights Act 1965. That legislation was already in place based on the 1866 Civil Rights Act and the Reconstruction Amendments 13th, 14th, and 15th, right? So he's absolutely correct. We didn't need any of that legislation in 64 or 65. That legislation was for everybody else under the guise of we're going to try to help black people. Which essentially included white women and other minorities, right? Once you put white women and minorities in there, now you've just literally erased all the gains that you're trying to get by virtue of adding other people in there. That legislation should have been exclusive, Black Americans and Black Americans only, and that's where it went wrong. Because again, he's right. He's absolutely right on that. The legislation was already in place. All you needed was the enforcement, proper enforcement.
And that's why I said, and people haven't necessarily liked it. When you think about civil rights, what did we actually get? Because we didn't quote unquote win a fight. They gave us what they wanted us to have. And that's not to disrespect all the civil rights leaders who was actually trying to make something happen for us. But at the end of the day, we didn't get what we asked for. We got what they wanted to give us.
Well,
and my thing is, that's not a victory per se.
Yeah, I don't want to make this. I don't want to go into this too much. This is not. You're right. We're not going to impugn the people who were working on behalf of black people in the 1950s and 60s to support the civil rights. We're not going to do that. The difference is that they were operating in good faith, where the United States government was not. They were never going to do the right thing by black people. It was never going to happen. That was their intent from the beginning.
All right, now I'm gonna say shout out to Derek. Derek says, "Is birthright and birthright citizenship the same?" Not necessarily, because a birthright is a birthright. The question is your citizenship, does your citizenship come from your birthright? Well, there's there's obviously requirements because you can be born anywhere and that don't make you no American citizen. You know, now I'm going to say I do question because I just heard about this over the weekend, technically just yesterday, about the guy who was born to a American soldier. Now, even though he had even though he's not originally from America, to hear that he had his child on a American base that happened to be in Germany and his son not necessarily get American citizenship, that didn't sound right to me. It didn't sound right to me because I thought even when you're in the military, if you were on like military property, that's just like being on America. That's what I thought anyway, which I guess I wasn't right about that, I guess.
Is the guy himself a citizen?
Yeah, that's the question. Is he a citizen?
Is
That's
he
the
a
question.
citizen?
To
So
my
that's because
understanding, he was a naturalized citizen.
something's not right then.
Yeah,
He was a
that's
naturalized
not.
citizen that went into the military.
Okay, so if something's been revoked, it's because something probably was found where he did something wrong on the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
He either lied, and no one. Because again, people take this stuff lightly. I mean,
they
I've
do.
had to do
They do.
everything that I did in the military. They ask you literally, even at first enlistment, are you lying? Anything, anything falsifying these documents of the federal offense, all this stuff. You know the language, right? Right from the beginning, they tell you that if you did something wrong, which people have done, we had a guy. Did you know we had a guy that actually served in his brother's place? He took it. He had a criminal record, so he took his brother's social security number and served 20 plus years under his brother's social. He earned all those benefits, right? People were actually arguing that he should get the benefits, and they were like, "No, it's not you, man. This is your brother. This goes to your brother. And since your brother didn't technically serve and do the work, nobody gets anything. You're lucky we're not throwing you in prison right now."
I mean, fraud is a crime.
I think they just quietly let him go. They're like, look,
It
just get
is a
on out,
crime.
quietly go and just live your life. You did what you did. We appreciate it, but you came in fraudulently. We're not even going to pursue this. We're just going to let you go. Nobody gets anything. You go take the skills we gave you and go build a life someplace else and just be happy we're not throwing you in jail right now.
Well, to me, that was an easy compromise because the thing is, somebody could argue, well, if he did all of it under his brother's name, then his brother should get those benefits. To just avoid that argument altogether, we just gonna say everything's all good, going your way. So I can see why they would do that because you don't want to have that argument because technically that could end up costing millions of dollars due to medical things that may come about later or something like that. You never know how much money that's going to actually cost you. So it's definitely easier to walk away from that than to really get into the nuts and bolts of it. So they probably made a smart choice on their part as far as that's concerned. Now, shout out to and Rael makes a point. Fraud is a crime. Let's just not blow past that. Fraud is a crime. Shout out to Truth Teller. He says this amendment is duplicitous and can be read at the states having a say over citizenship, which is what the law was before the passing of the law. Well, you know what?
Well, I disagree. Hold on. I disagree. And the reason why I disagree
too. Yeah.
I disagree simply because this was done at the federal level to stop states from being able to. There has to be equanimity in the law as it relates to a matter like this because it can create so much types of confusion. So because you had a policy of freeing Black people, then there had to be, remember, going back to Dred Scott, it said that Black people could be citizens. You know what I'm saying? So there was a question within the law, you know what I'm saying, of how they were viewing it at the particular time. Like that, slavery ending created a
new problem.
imbalance in the law. So they had to address it. So this was the federal government's response to that. So at that point, they had to address it. So they addressed it, but they addressed it specifically for Black people because Black people had a unique situation other than other people did.
Because they didn't say formerly enslaved persons, right? Because they could put any kind of language in there to clarify this up, but they were very ambiguous. And the other thing too is just real quick on 1857, Dred Scott decision was because black people were not citizens, they had no rights. That was
Right.
the Dred Scott decision.
Right.
All right, now we got Derek done came up. I feel good about it, y'all. Everything says is the actual Derek from the chat. But I want to let Derek get the mic real quick, and then I'll show him as we see it's actually Derek, because y'all know that I got to be worried about trolls at all times. So Derek, you have the floor, my brother. Welcome
Yes,
to the
sir.
show.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Like I had mentioned in the comment, the birthright and the birthright citizenship, I'm really confused about. Because as an older gentleman, I went to high school, and when I was taking civics class, I was under the impression that the United States citizenship as a whole was a status, was the equal status of the American nationality. And the American nationality was held by the American Indian. Now, am I the only one who learned that in school?
Well, so just real quick, so the American Indians or Native Americans did not become citizens until 1924. They got their citizenship
Ho-
after
oh,
black people, by the way.
hold on.
And one of the reasons was because they
Okay,
had all of these treaties and they weren't recognized as citizens.
I understand. I understand all of the history that you just announced, right? But now, okay, so who owns this place as a nationality?
Well, that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and no one
Okay,
because this
so
place was
now,
An entirely
colonized.
but
different
the
conversation.
what
no,
I'm saying is, when I was a child, they made it very simple. They made it
Go ahead
very
and explain it
simple
then, real quick. What they tell you?
because the foreigner was the Englishman who fought against the Indians. The Indians are the owners of this land, so they fought them. They said they conquered them, and then now they are the reapers of the benefits. But now, in through time, they have mixed in another group of people to interact as the people that they warred against. And then they brought in another group of people they said they enslaved. But now, in actuality, there's only two legal nationalities on this land in writing. There's the American nationality, which is the American Indian by blood, and then there's the United States citizen, who can be any other race.
Based
Am
on
I correct?
naturalization. Yeah, based on
Based on the
naturalization.
Naturalization Act of 1790. You can
Yeah,
be Russian and then pledge your allegiance to the United States of America, and you can live the American lifestyle.
yeah. You have to give up
Okay,
your
so that
Russianness.
means
Yeah.
that there is a birthright because there's a natural actual American, and then
No,
there's
so
the
so
United. Yes.
so look, anybody who's naturalized, it's not natural. They're not entitled to anything. Anybody who's natural, they literally they have to go through a process to prove that they're ready to rescind and relinquish any claims to anybody else in order to become an American citizen.
Foreign allegiances.
Yeah, allegiance,
Exactly.
right?
That's what the
Birthright
Pledge
is
of Allegiance
basically,
is.
yeah, you know,
Okay, but what I'm saying
it's
is
very simple
where.
for black people because our birthright is the land for which our ancestors, did all of this work to get us to this point.
Okay,
So that's
hold
this
on.
is our inherent
This
right.
this is what I'm saying. Okay, we're all coming at this from a perspective of which we learned as a child of we were brought here. Okay, there is only written stories of us being brought here. Now, the financial element of this place as a country has never been evaluated amongst us. See, because
well,
our history starts with this Pavish story, and that's where we lead from.
well.
But
My
we
thing is,
never go back. Yes, sir.
I'm not leading from there. This is
Okay,
my
are you
country that I own because I was born here. America doesn't have a
okay?
quote unquote nationality. It doesn't have a people. The laws that we put in place says everybody gets to be their own king. You get to do whatever you want as long as you're not destroying somebody else's property or people. As a person born here, that means I can do that. So it's not about where I come from, because I come from here. America is my beginning. Okay,
okay?
that's me as an individual. America is my beginning. Everybody who's here should have that understanding. America is your beginning. Now the issue for other folks is where they come from. There is no come from for me. This is my country that I own because I'm a citizen of America. Period.
Hello?
And my
No, no,
thing is I'm
no.
going to
Okay.
operate as a citizen of America, which is why when you talk about this illegal immigrant stuff, I care nothing about an illegal immigrant because they're illegal at the end of the day. We have a way to come into this country legally. If you're not going to choose the legal way, you're not my concern. It's that simple. I don't care what your age is. That's why I say, even when they say, what about them babies they throwing over the wall or whatever? Them babies included. If you're not an American citizen, you got the roll as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why everybody ain't taking it that way.
Yeah, you're right, Roger. It becomes a lot of guilt tripping and sob stories, and look, and ain't nobody trying to hear black men's sob stories. Ain't nobody trying to hear what it is black men are going through. So I'm not really. It's hard to interpret or interpolate everybody else's struggle and issues and problems when black men just have to fight just to be heard over everybody else's noise. When you got to fix what's right with your citizens first, and then we can start talking about everybody else. Get that right first, get all of that straight and in order 100%, and then we can start looking at everybody else. Y'all are operating out of order and out of turn.
But I'm asking, who is legally supposed to be here, and
the people
who is
born here.
illegally supposed to be here? Now, now answer this question.
I'm saying it goes by who's
hold
born.
on. You asking rabbit hole questions. Okay,
No.
when you're asking
I'm
those,
asking as a gentleman who grew up in Los Angeles, right? And I've been watching illegal people come here since I was 15 years old. And knowing that as long as they're here and they have a baby, the baby is legal. And they've
is that what you
known that.
believe? Is that what you believe?
No, sir. This is what's stopping now. See, because you did. How old are you, may I ask?
But I'm 46. That ain't got nothing to do with it.
Okay.
I'm asking
Now
you,
I'm 50.
like, is that what you believe?
Sir. No, what I believe.
I'm
It's the
asking
fact that
you,
you could
do
come
you
here
believe?
illegal. Hold on.
Are you
So
going to
are you
let me
asking
answer the question? Are you going to let
Bro,
me answer the question?
he can't tell you what he asking unless you listen to what he
Like,
asked.
goddamn, dude.
Okay. Yes, sir. What was the question?
I'm asking you, do you believe that a person that comes over here illegally who has a child on American soil, should that child be a citizen of the United States?
No.
Okay, that's all I was asking. I was looking for clarification.
Yes. Now, do you know that that's been a loophole that they have been
We know that's what's
using
been happening.
for the
we know
last
that.
40 years?
Yeah, that's what Trump is trying to shut down.
Now, my question to you would be today, let's say their grandmother was illegal or their great grandmother was illegal. Now, is that 3 generations that she passed on? Are those legal?
So anything that's getting into place right now is not retroactive to anybody, regardless of their status, whether
Now,
illegal, it doesn't
what
matter
I'm
at this point.
asking,
What they're trying to do is
no.
fix it going forward. That's what he's trying to do right
See,
now.
now you okay? So now, in order to fix it going forward, who loses about the past?
Nothing's going to be
Because
retroactive. If you're already a citizen, you're a citizen. It is what it is. The idea is
I
to fix it
understand.
No, not true. Hold on, Kev. This is
unless you're denaturalized.
Hold on. This is what Obama tried to do with the Dream Act. Okay, he tried. See, this stuff really starts from a
A
political
long time
standpoint.
ago.
I'm not saying
Yes,
it
sir.
didn't start. I didn't say the policy didn't start a long time
Right.
ago. Obama exacerbated the problem because he tried
Mhm.
to pass something he knew was illegal. He could not executive order the Dream Act. That
Right.
has to be
Correct.
dealt with by Congress. That has to be dealt with through Congress, okay? All Trump did was come in and put executive orders surrounding protecting the border. And he used the alien, I forgot the name of the act.
Okay.
Uh,
It might be
whatever
the
the
Alien
act
and
was.
Sedition Act. It might be
Yes,
the Alien and Sedition.
right.
Yeah.
Based on, because remember, he designated the cartels as terrorist organizations. And they were, a lot of people don't understand this. The cartels are very instrumental in funding illegal immigration for the simple fact that they push a lot of those people over here to work in businesses that they set up to funnel the money through to wash their money and make it legal money. Okay,
They've been doing that for 35 years.
I know, but he looked at that as an invasion on American soil. That's how he viewed it. He used the alien
But
enemy.
that's
So again, that's what. So he did that to basically undermine what Obama had put forth in terms of the Dream Act, because he could not do that. He didn't have the authority to do that. He didn't have the authority. Period.
All right, y'all. Now I gotta let Hood
oh,
Server get in. He done came up
right,
as well. So,
Democrats,
and bro, we didn't hear you. You
the
kind of went out on it. Yeah, we having a
oh,
little
I'm
bit of
sorry.
trouble hearing
No,
you.
I
We
was
having
just
a little
asking
bit.
how. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now. We hear you now. But before you ask the question, because the question gonna need an answer, I gotta let the Hood Servative get in. He done came up, so let me let him get the mic
Okay,
real
no
quick.
problem.
Go ahead, my brother.
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? What's up, Roger?
How's it going?
Cool. I've been talking about this birthright issue thing for a couple of weeks now, and it's gonna blow up black politics, bro. It has to because you have one group of people like the black native-born population who rightfully feel not only betrayed by the Democrat Party in terms of just general politics, just bad governance, right? But let me point something out to you. You remember that line? It is an old song, but in that song from Biggie, he was like, remember all them people? Shout out to all the people that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to see my daughter. Bro, I was in that same spot too. And hey, none of these politicians ever go to no jail to come visit me while I was trying to make some money to see my kids, right? But they'll go down there for Pablo. They'll go to El Salvador for Juan and them. And I'm just like, bro, I'm not. Nobody gonna forget this. This is not gonna just be easily forgotten. How y'all put all y'all energy into an outside ethnic group. Like, what is the point of black politics if all the politicians are supporting the Latino communities?
There is no point to it.
None.
That's why they get a lot of them getting bounced and being ignored by their constituents. There is no point to it.
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? You can't point to anything that they do to empower or progress black people in any way. Nothing.
Black people have one problem. They don't know their nationality. And they don't know how great it is and what it is. And the fact that you're all that.
No, we just have
When they
sellouts that
when
are doing stuff
hold
on
on.
behalf of other people.
Yes, black people sold
They
their
got nothing to do with
brand
black people.
out. Hold on, sir. Black people sold their brand. And that's why they're black people today.
Well,
Because their
I'm gonna
brand was American. Hold on. If you just let me cook for us 1 second, I can get you to understand. Your brand is what you do in your land. And your land is America. Makes you American. Now, that proves that you created all the products here because they're American made products. Now, somebody usurped your brand in the 30s and it became white to where the whole world thought white America made this and they brought you. Now the whole world is under awe that they can't make you leave.
since you
because
mentioned white America,
the world today thought that these Hispanic people were coming here for your position, and they felt that they were going to deport you back to Africa. That was the plan.
well,
The
again,
Democrat
since you
side,
mentioned white
the
America,
Democrat
bro, isn't
side
it a
was to
weird
bring in the
position that you're in now?
No, I'm an
Well,
American.
think about it. No, think
I
about it. But
can't.
so are
Yes,
they.
sir.
We're the only two
Who's
groups
they?
that are Americans: white people and black people. We're the
No, no,
only
no, no.
ones.
Okay, listen, sir. And the only reason that they're called Americans today is because they have 4 or 5 generations.
Yeah, so do
That's
we.
it.
That's literally the
No, no,
concept
no,
of
no, no, no.
birthright
Sir,
citizenship,
you
right?
never, ever has not been written in United States history as not other than what you are, is an American.
I don't know
So,
what
so
that
Derek,
Because
means. I'm
you're
just
kind of
saying.
talking.
okay,
I'm
I'm
but
just
listening
let
saying
here.
me
it's us and
how
it's just us and
as
them is all I'm saying, bro. That's literally all it is. Us and them. Who
yes,
else has
right.
birthright to America? Black people and white people, and who else?
Hold on. You're absolutely correct. But the only difference is, sir, there's what you call the United States citizenship, which are white people. You're black by nationality. See, that's
That
what your
makes no
American
sense. I
is.
don't
Your
understand how to
American
apply
is
that.
your nationality. And the difference is one is the owner of a home and one is a renter. That's the difference.
Okay,
And
let
this
me.
land has an
Okay,
owner.
can we go
And the
back to the
owner,
conversation?
We go on the truth
I mean,
teller.
I'm
Truth
just
teller
letting
that
you
came up.
Can we go back
uh,
to the conversation?
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no,
because
no.
Derek,
It's not
Derek, no
truth
offense, but you're
telling.
talking
This
in
is
circles a
basic
bit, man.
civics.
You're talking in circles, brother.
No,
Okay, well,
it's
I'm
not
just
that he's
trying to.
talking in circles. He's you really trying to bring in something that's not necessarily what we're
That,
talking about right
that
now,
exactly,
and
Well,
that
exactly.
no,
don't
no,
work.
no. Okay,
No,
I'm not trying to
there.
do that. I'm just trying to
But
determine.
you
Okay,
are doing
is there
That's
a
literally
such?
what you're doing because you
Okay,
already lost me, man.
you are
okay,
doing that though.
We got to tell you
I
that
get
you.
okay.
what you're saying there. I do get what you're saying, but I'm gonna recommend to everybody, y'all, when we talk about a particular subject on the day, that's the subject we talk about.
There's just certain subjects, man, that
N-
it's not for the
This is
public
why I'm
airwaves
asking
like
about the
that.
birthright and the birthright citizenship. Because why is it
Well,
called birthright? And then there's the birthright citizenship. Shouldn't there
All
just be
right,
one?
can I
Oh
jump
my
in? Because
God,
then we can
Jesus
kill that.
Christ!
For your birthright is determined by the authority of the government of which you reside. It's that simple. You can call it whatever you want. Going back to my
Okay.
point that I said in the chat, I was making the point that literally in the 14th Amendment, to establish your citizenship, your jurisdiction has to be established. Guess who established? Guess how you determine which jurisdiction you fall into. Anybody want to take a guess?
Yeah. Yes,
Wait,
please tell
how?
me. I
Oh,
don't know.
who knows
The
the
origin
vital
country.
statistics? Who knows the vital statistics department in every state? You don't have citizenship without a birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
Uh
So,
huh.
yeah, it's gonna be determined by your origin country.
It's going to be determined in our country. It's determined by your origin state.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So what I was saying earlier is this law is duplicitous because the state already oversaw citizenship prior to this law. You
Okay.
guys are fighting over you're fighting or arguing over something, and not really
I
arguing, but
don't. I don't
counter
know if
you're
that.
counter you're
I don't know if that
counterpointing
really works
something.
that way, though. Hold on.
Well,
How can the
you
state
well
have
put.
sovereignty over citizenship? That has to be a federal matter exclusively.
How do you get your certificate of citizenship if you're born here?
Yeah. You
You
get it
apply
at the
at the
state
state
level.
office, right?
So
If you if you're
let's be
born
clear
here,
here.
yeah, if you're born here, how do you get your citizenship?
Okay. Yeah. You get it through the state, or you're talking about what do you call it? What's it called? Birth certificate. And I get all of that. The thing
The
is
vital
that federal
statistics
law,
department.
state law does not override federal law, and that's what the
No, no,
amendment is
no.
about.
You misunderstand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's not overriding. It's co-signing. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Because
Okay.
if the state decides that your birth certificate ain't gonna say from the United States of government, you'll have to go the other route, which you won't be able to because you won't have a birth certificate from anywhere else. You'll be stranded if the states decide to make you that way. So honestly, it's the states that decide whether or not you're a citizen, and that's exactly how it was before the 14th Amendment.
Well, actually, I think what you're talking about is literally what the government is, what Trump is trying to undo. So, a state like California is deciding that if you come here and have a baby, you're an American citizen now. That's literally what they're saying, and Trump is trying to undo that by restricting the 14th Amendment to just the descendants of black slaves. So, I think it's a
Correct.
little underhanded move that the states are trying to do. It's always the
No,
federal
it's not.
power.
No, it's
This
not.
is what a sanctuary.
So
That's the
here,
point of a sanctuary city, bro. That's the
well,
whole
hear me
point is to
out.
get
Hear
them
me
here,
out. Hear me out.
protect them,
That's
let them make an anchor baby, and so they can become a citizen. The
that's
state is
that.
overstepping their
I'm
own
not saying you're
boundaries by
wrong.
doing that.
Hold on. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying you're misdirecting. It was the states who decided citizenship prior to the 14th Amendment. All the 14th Amendment did was, hey, as long as the states say it's okay for you to be a citizen, we co-sign it. And then
Okay.
here goes some rules around your citizenship. That's all the 14th Amendment is doing. So I
Okay.
mean,
Yeah.
he can fight the states, but they're the ones who have say on whether or not you're an actual citizen. There's nothing he can do about that because
Well, because he.
it's
Okay. So
written in the 14th Amendment, literally.
so truth. He's using the phrase "subject to the jurisdiction thereof" as part of his argument, which means
Exactly.
you are not
Exactly.
subject to the jurisdiction of either the state or the United States because you're not a
No,
citizen.
subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Right
Yeah. When
now, that
even when I
wait,
even
hold on. Hold on, Kev. When
okay.
you read that in that line, it's the jurisdiction of the United States of America, federal, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
federal goes down to state though. State does
Correct.
not
But how does
override federal.
right? But how does the federal government decides that you're under their jurisdiction? Anybody want to
You
go back to vital statistics again?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna have to be, some you're gonna have documents that support that you're an actual
Now,
that you were born in that state. And we get
And
all
who
of that.
and
The
who gives
issue
you
is
those documents? Yeah, who
the
gives you those
state.
documents?
what,
There
The
we
state,
go.
and you're
what,
okay. The state. What I'm
hold on,
saying is that if
real
you don't
quick,
get those documents at all, that's literally the state just actually following federal law, which is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They would not issue you any documents if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of either the state or the United States government.
It's not
and,
the jurisdiction.
and I
Sorry, go
gotta say
ahead.
real quick. I gotta say real quick. Now, when it comes down to it, the federal government is supposed to be dealing with things that operate between two states. It's not that a state is supposed to be overridden by the federal government. The federal government has a job to handle commerce between states. They're not supposed to. The federal government is technically not even supposed to be ruling states. I know it's understood that way today, but that's not what it's supposed to be. They're supposed to just deal with the commerce between the two different states, not telling the state what to do.
Which is why, and this
Yeah.
this this is why you have the States' Rights Amendment, right? But even the
Because
States' Rights Amendment does not override federal law, which is why you have the 14th
No,
Amendment,
I'm saying
because
the
it all
state.
goes back to federal
Wait,
law.
wait.
No.
Well,
What
hold
I'm
on.
saying, let me say this to make it plain.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
I'm saying is power is to a person. The person gives up certain power to the city. The city gives certain power to the state. The state gives certain power to the federal government. So the federal government is last. You're saying it like the federal government is first. That is incorrect. The way things were written and controlled was so the people had the power, and then we'll give some of our power to people in these positions. So the United States government, federally wise, is absolutely the last person on the actual list. They're last. Now I understand folks ain't taught constitutional way it's supposed to and things like that nowadays, but and unless there's states, there is no federal government. The
I
federal
agree
government
with you,
needs the
Roger.
states.
Okay, so yeah, you're operating from a top down or from a bottom up process, and that's fine.
No,
The thing is that from the top
it's
down,
not bottom
whatever
up.
the
Well, hold
state
on.
does.
The
Because Kev, we
person
don't even have to
is
go
the
that
top.
far, though, Kev. We don't have to go that far. The federal government is saying the states make the calls. Is what I'm pointing out.
And
So
I get
what we're
all of that.
talking, yeah, what we're talking about right now is irrelevant because if the federal government says the states make the call and the states is making the call, there's not really much he can fight. He's gonna try to fight the jurisdiction thing. I get it.
Okay.
The problem is jurisdiction in our country is established by state law, not federal.
Not if it's not it.
So guess
No,
what's
no, no,
gonna
no. The
happen?
14th Amendment is a federal. It's a federal
It is
statute.
a
It's an
federal law,
amendment.
but it concedes to state law written in it.
No, it doesn't. It overrides
Yes,
state
it
law.
does. As soon as it says the jurisdiction thereof, the next question would be, well, how do you establish jurisdiction in the United States without going through a state? And the point of the matter is, you can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I am going to say
Correct.
that I don't think what Trump is doing is going to actually work the way he wants it to work. I really don't believe that's going to happen. Time will tell, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen. But let me let
Well,
Shark
how do
send to the flow because he done came up. Shark.
Just to that
how
real
does
quick,
this
Roger,
how does
it'll
he
work
want
while
it to
he's in
work?
office. That's as far as he's gonna be able to go with it, unless
Yeah,
you
you
get
might
either
work. You might be right about that. Yeah.
legislation or an amendment. That's it. But it'll work while he's in office because it's an executive order, and as long as he's in office up until the next few years, he's good. After that, who knows what anybody else is going to decide? It could be rescinded, or the next president could actually continue the same policy.
Okay, Shark, you got the
Okay.
flow.
So what exactly is he trying to do?
Hold on,
He's
before
trying to
anybody answer
dismantle
that
birthright
question,
citizenship.
let's give Shark the flow. Shark then came up. Let's give him the flow.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Thank you, Raj. I always thought it was either a passport, visa, or a green card. Somehow they figured out ways to they found some loopholes to exploit. Now I remember when people would come over and they would just get married to an American person and the person would help them get their green card. Why don't they just do that instead of just trying to come over here straight illegal? That's the thing, that it's no defending somebody doing something illegal.
Because the loophole is, even if you're illegal, right? If you have a child, the child is illegal. So therefore, they can't break up the child and the mother.
Yes, they can.
That's the loophole.
The
Now,
thing
hold
is,
on.
they can
The
do
whole
that.
thing about
And they do that
what
all the
Trump is
time. When an
trying to do
American
is that
when an
no
American
problem.
single parent gets locked up, they get separated from their child. That child either gets put in child protective services or gets given to a relative that puts up to
And
get that child.
not only
No,
that, when
what
you heard
Trump is
Tom
saying,
Homan speak
what
on the issue, bro, hold on 1 second. Tom Homan spoke directly on it. He said we can send the kids back too. What's wrong
right?
with that? Why are we
Nothing
obligated
wrong
to
with
hold
that.
on to the kid?
Right.
Nothing. We
That's
not.
the whole thing. That's what Trump is saying. You can go back with your parents. Now,
And my thing is, that's
even if it's your grandparents, you can go back with them. That's
So what?
that's the issue. Because now you have two generations of people that feel like they are Americans. No, your grandmother was illegal. So now you, your mom, and your grandmother have to go back to Mexico. And the problem now is they can't even go back to Mexico
what
Yes, they can.
because
They can still go back to
Mexico,
Mexico. They absolutely can.
no, hold on
Mexico
now.
is
Hold on.
listen to the problem.
The
Mexico
issue is
saying
not.
is if you
No,
don't
no,
speak
hold
Spanish,
on.
don't come back.
Hold on. That's not the problem. The problem is people who want to stay and get benefits from American dollars. That's what the problem is. If you had a kid over here and you got busted for being illegal and you left and took your kid with you, America ain't saying much. The issue is the people who stay and they say, well, I can't be separated from my child because my baby's a citizen, and now they want the whole family to stay because you got this anchor baby, which is why the term anchor baby even exists. My thing is, the baby could be a citizen, you not get out. And if you had that, which it should be, and there's literally no reason for this not to be in place, then the illegals ain't trying to come over here to have the baby like that in the first place. It's going to cut down tremendously. I'm not saying nobody would do it, but it would cut down tremendously that people would be coming over here just to have an anchor baby, knowing that there's a good chance they're going to get separated from that child for the rest of their life.
I agree with you, Roger. What I'm telling you, and I told you earlier, even with what you're saying, you're still giving them too much latitude. You're allowing the kid to stay.
Well, it's
Right.
not that I'm trying
Right.
to
Just
give them
send them both
latitude.
Everybody,
back.
so
I'm not
everybody
trying
needs
to
to
Now,
go
give
because
them latitude.
technically, Roger,
if we
because the child was
if we
born
do
to
something
to
illegal, we get
non-citizens, even the kid's
prosecuted.
not a citizen. That
Now,
whole born on U.S. soil thing, that is just a loose practice that's been applied when there's been no real evidence to support that. You can't, again, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's the key phrase in the 14th Amendment as it relates to citizenship. If you are not a legal citizen, you are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Therefore, any children
period.
born to you are not subject to that same jurisdiction.
Period.
It's basically I don't know the legal phrase, but it's the status of the mother and the father. Somebody in there has to be a citizen. Somebody, at least one of those parents. And if you got two that are non-citizens, then what does it make that kid?
Now I'm
Not a
gonna
citizen,
say I'm gonna
born
say
on U.S. soil or not.
I will
That's
say
why they
I
used to
do
get
agree with
married
that.
to an American before, you know what I mean? So they could
Yeah,
stay.
so one would
But
be a citizen. Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah,
correct.
so and that's that was like a
And
so
that's a
what Shark is
privilege.
talking about, that was kind of like a workaround in order to get like a accelerated process to make it legal. Which
Well,
if you have those loopholes in place, what that forces people to do is connect themselves to an actual citizen by marriage, and there's nothing wrong
hold
with
on.
that as long as it's legitimate.
No,
Again,
because
because
that's called a privilege.
then it goes back to that perjury thing. Now, if you have somebody connecting themselves via marriage to a U.S. citizen for the express purpose of birthing a child, and they do that in a fraudulent way, if you come on the investigation, now that nullifies everything. That kid can be
Yes,
denaturalized,
that's
and the
true.
person who did it legally can go, and then the U.S. citizen can be
Can go to
punished
jail.
for
Yes.
violating, for perjuring themselves. Like everybody gets it under that format. There's
Yes,
a
that's
problem for
true.
everybody when you do it the
I don't
wrong
think
way.
if you do it, even if you do it that way, the restriction of citizenship wouldn't apply to the child. You would just either kick the child out or leave him with the parent that stays. But you got to kick out the illegal, the person who
What
violated.
You
So
guys
I
are giving them
mean,
too much latitude, and that's
what
what Trump is trying to shut down.
it's not that we give them latitude. We looking at what's in right now. Now I am gonna
yeah.
say what Trump is actually trying to do is
Sorry.
to make it where the baby has to be connected because it's not about the mother. He said, if the baby is born on U.S. soil, regardless of why the mother is here, the father would have to be a U.S. citizen, or an American citizen, I should say, in order for that baby to be granted citizenship. And so they're making it where it's not just about where the baby is born. It's about is your dad an actual American citizen? Because things could happen with a woman. The woman could just be visiting. She could be on a visa. She could be doing something where she's in the country temporarily. Whatever the case, is the father an American citizen? Because if the father's not an American citizen, he's saying that child should not receive American citizenship just because he was born in this particular country. Now, I'm okay with that. If that's what the rule gonna be, I'm totally fine with it at the end of the day. Because why do I say that? Because it establishes that children actually belong to their fathers. Not necessarily that that's what they're going for, but that's going to be part of the package, which I honestly believe fundamentally that children belong to their fathers. So I'm with that.
Is he
So
trying to establish citizenship through the paternal line? Because what if the mother is a citizen and the father isn't?
it specifically said, regardless of what the mother said, because it said a couple things what the mother could be, but it said the father has to be an American citizen.
Okay, all right. It's just I haven't looked into that detail too much. My thing is that
No,
somebody in there has to
it's
be
in
a
one of the
citizen for that
links.
kid to be
It's in
legal.
one of the links.
Okay,
I think it was the first link
Roger,
I put in there.
can I want to
Roger, so
translate for our whoremongers though, Kev? Can I translate that for our whoremongers?
what's that?
Basically, he's saying y'all international hoes need to get y'all Kegel exercises up so that you can make sure your kid is a U.S. citizen. Good luck with
Okay,
the hard work, ladies. That's all. That's all. That's the translation. There we go.
Yeah, and the man I have to claim that child.
okay. So the way Trump is trying to do it, he's trying to establish the paternal line. My thing is that what's happening right now is you have two non-citizens pumping out babies and calling that child a citizen.
Right,
That's what's happening now
But
and Trump wants to interrupt that.
tremendous levels.
Yeah,
They're not even trying to
but
get married to a citizen. They're not even trying to link themselves to a citizen. You got non-citizens pumping out
no.
babies.
Now let
Right.
me address this real quick. Shout out to Mr. Sugar to you. He said, so Roger, if an American mother has a child by an illegal foreigner, the kid is an American. That's not what he said. What he said was, if the mother is in the country for any reason, even if it's a legal reason, then the father has to be an American citizen. So this was not addressing people that are American. It was addressing people that are where the mother is not American. It's not
All of
addressing
a sudden,
American mother.
people forget that only women actually give birth, right? Like it has nothing to do with the man on that level.
I think that's why he's doing it the way he's doing it, to make sure that the father is an American citizen. Because if it wasn't just that, some random woman can come over here by herself, have the baby by herself. You know what I'm saying? The guy never even make the trip to get to America, and then say, hey, my baby's an American citizen. Now y'all got to take care of us.
That's the majority of what they're doing right now. They literally have a name for it. What is it? Birth
Anchor
tourism
babies.
or something like that. Well, I mean, they're calling it birth tourism or birth, whatever they're calling it. The bottom line is that's the overwhelming majority of these kids that are being born. They're not even connected to an American citizen, much less a man. They're just pregnant, coming in 6 months, and then hanging around for a few months, pop out the baby, and boom.
This is the loophole.
There's no male connection at all to a U.S. male anywhere.
Because the loophole,
that's the majority of it. That's one of the things he's trying to shut down. So either way, Roger, whatever it is he's doing, you're right, it's gonna decrease it significantly. But the major issue is 2 non-citizens, male, female, producing a child gets born on U.S. soil, and they're claiming the kid is a U.S. citizen. That's not how the 14th Amendment was written. And I'm not trying to get into the mind of the framers.
No, I mean, it wasn't the intention, but we got to deal with what's happening. And my thing is, even though that wasn't the intention, I am gonna say they intentionally wrote it the way they wrote it on purpose. You know what I'm saying? It was a very deliberate act. And my thing is, what I honestly believe Trump is trying to do is get this stuff to a point where there will be another amendment to the Constitution. That's what I believe he's trying to do.
More than likely, so check it the way they wrote the 14th Amendment. Because as we can see, it was very unclear the way they wrote it. And the reason why it's very unclear this way is because of two things.
It was unclear who the slave was.
Well, no, it was very clear who the slave was. They just couldn't say it on legal paper, right? So, it was real clear. It was real. So they said, let me finish, my man. Let me finish before you ask a question that I might be able to answer for you. So if you already knew that this is just for a specific group of people that were already here, and you're specifically making them citizens because you allowed the states to not allow them citizenship, right? But you just passed a law in your constitution where you can't make anything race specific, right? So that's the first hurdle they had to jump over. The second hurdle they had to jump over is they didn't want to alienate states' power. They did not want the states to think again that the federal government is taking away states' power, because the states determine the validity of your birth. If this law didn't take into account that jurisdiction part, it wouldn't matter if you were born in any state. Not only that, the reason why states have the vital statistics, the reason why they give you birth certificates is so that you can be a valid taxpayer, because you can't get a social security number without a birth certificate.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, everything you're saying, I do believe is true. And I'm also saying this was just the we hate them niggas policy. And America does a lot of dumb stuff over we hate them niggas. Because at the end of the day, they could have wrote it in as former slaves or free slaves. They could have used language like that, period. They didn't necessarily have to make it about color, because a slave technically could have been any color. So they was just being some a-holes at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people have lost touch with the fact that, yes, even though the slaves fought, the Union was able to be reformed. And at the end of the day, ain't nobody finna thank niggas for saving the Union, and we still don't want them niggas to be citizens. And that's just what happened.
You guys are saying this needs to be cleared up with an amendment. You don't even need an amendment. It's congressional legislation can clear this up. It doesn't even have to go that far. You could do it through Congress.
We're more than likely to get an amendment, Kev, and lightning strike the middle of the Capitol 5 times before we get anything out of Congress.
I'm just saying. So people keep saying you need an amendment, and no, you don't. You just need congressional legislation. Now at that point, it's a federal law. Now it's a law. It's simple.
Well, I'm not saying we need an amendment. I think that's what Trump is trying to do.
Matter of fact, congressional legislation signed by, approved by the president would be easier than an amendment.
Well, I think that's what Trump is trying to do. I'm not saying we technically need an amendment, but I think that's what it's about. Because once it becomes the Constitution, it's law of the land at that point. Because the Constitution is supposed to be the agreement of we the people. So once
Yeah.
you get into
So
the Constitution, it bypasses everything because we the people said it.
So if you guys have paid attention to some of these landmark Supreme Court decisions, and one of the famous decisions, and I forget which one, because they made that one of the judges basically said the Constitution is quote unquote colorblind, right? That's why race is not mentioned. The only race that's actually mentioned in the Constitution and any of its amendments, and I don't think it's mentioned in any of the 27 amendments, but I know it's in the Constitution, is Indians, right? Indians would be a race, right, at that time, because that's when it was written in the 1700s. You know, Indians were recognized separately, and black people also were referenced, but not directly, indirectly. And then the Constitution, based on the 1790 Nationalization Act, the overwhelming assumption and what you call it, the predisposition was that all of that applied to white men and white men only, and by virtue of their race and association to white women and children and white children. So that's who the Constitution was actually written for. Again, primarily white men, white women by association, and the children born from all of that. So black people are not mentioned at all anywhere in the Constitution. I know because I've read it multiple times. I keep reading it to find it. Right,
What
we're mentioned indirectly only 3 times. Only three
what
times black people are referenced, and the
not
only
well
race
well
that's referenced are Indians.
well the thing is how you're reading it, because at the end of the day, once we were not slaves, it all that came to us at the end of the day. I'm we the people now. Maybe my ancestors
Black
were
people are
slaves,
the
but I'm we
Indians.
the people.
Yeah, I just
So
wanted to clear that up because that's you got to go back and look at the history of the Supreme Court has gotten things wrong over the years. All right, they'll say stuff like the Constitution is quote unquote colorblind. They list the Dred Scott decision as one of the worst decisions in Supreme Court history, along with followed by 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson, right? Which is why they had to correct it later on with other legislation and overturn those decisions with other legislation through other court precedents, right? By proving or through amendments. You know, 1954 overturns 1896 Plessy v. Ferguson. The 14th Amendment actually overrides and overturns 1857, the Dred Scott decision. They had to correct all of this stuff later on.
now
Some of the worst decisions they made have been regard basically to black people and race.
I mean, all the bad decisions pretty much been we hate the niggas. That's been the basis of it at the end of the day. Now, shout out to
You
Complex
hate us?
Design. Complex Designs, hey, drink some water, whoever that is. Complex Design says people come here legally through 3 different ways: airports, by sea, or across the border. All of these are under federal jurisdiction. What's so hard to understand about that? Ain't nothing hard to understand about it. The issue is that the American government don't just fix it at the end of the day. And I do think
Right.
ICE is a good start. And at the end of the day, nobody should be tripping about ICE. All the people that ICE gets are illegal people. Why would I, as an American, give 2 shakes about some illegal person? Now, people can say, well, it's a baby, y'all can split up family. I don't care. That's the risk you take. The one thing I understood about breaking laws, yes, technically you can get away with it. There's a possibility that you break a law and you get away with it. The other side is you might get caught. And if you get caught, there are consequences to pay. That's the name of the game. If I go out and
Right.
murder somebody, I get away with it if I get away with it. Now, if I get caught, I got to take everything that comes with getting caught. It is
Yeah,
what it is.
I have
you could get
I
Roger,
have
caught
you
I
5
just
have
decades later. Yeah, so
I have a question.
Roger, what you're doing is this is what everybody's doing. They're disregarding the actual foundation of the legal argument and trying to make an emotional argument and want the emotional argument
Correct.
to override the legal argument. And that's the
Correct.
problem that they're having, which is why, and I don't want to make it about this. So, people are complaining that black people are not on board with, they protesting against what's happening to other people of color, right? And by the way, you have some immigrants who are, of African and Caribbean descent that are being deported as well, right? They're losing their temporary protected status. So it's not so, there
They
are black ones,
deport
and then you
them
got the
illegal Haitians. Them illegal
yeah.
Haitians getting
So
deported too. So this, to me, this ain't got nothing to do with color. It's about your legal status. You either
Status.
illegal
Right.
or you legal.
Or legal.
well,
Period.
I'm just emphasizing everybody's disregarding the legal argument and they're trying to make an emotional argument. That's all I'm hearing from these what you call those political talking heads. You make for anybody who's part of an organization that represents like another group or culture. They're all making these emotional arguments, and they want you to disregard the legal argument. And my thing is, don't nobody have no problem when it comes to when it's time to apply the law. Everybody's straightforward and they understand that law and they're very explicit. They don't have an emotional argument at that point. So if we're not going to have an emotional argument for us, then I don't see how you can try to make an emotional argument for everything else. Apply. This always goes back to what I said, the hypocrisy of this unequal and this variable application of U.S. laws. This is the problem that America has had from the beginning, which is why we're going to continue to have this problem.
Well, let me say shout out to Complex Design. He said ICE is a federal agency. Well, look, I ain't got no problem with ICE. I've been saying that the whole show. I know you probably you wasn't here at the beginning. I've been saying that the whole show, and I say ICE is a good start. I think everybody caught up with ICE just need to get put on now, and we call it a day. I ain't got no issue about an illegal getting put out of a country because they are an illegal. I can't help nobody fighting for illegals to get rights. I don't think illegals have rights. I think all they get is privileges at the end of the day, and the privilege can run out the second somebody say it runs out. I don't see no issue with illegals getting separated. That's the risk you took by bringing your family over here in the first place, and you didn't do it the legal way. All this stuff is gambling to me, and sometimes you just crap out.
Yeah, so here's the problem they're running into. So there's like 100. I want to say it's like 195 countries that are recognized by the UN. There's actually 200 plus countries with their territories and everything, but let's just say the UN recognizes 195 or so countries. Look, out of that 190 plus countries, there's only like maybe 32 to 35 that even recognize birthright citizenship. Did you know that in some countries in Europe and other countries in Asia, you can go 2 or 3 generations and they still not consider you a citizen? Like if you screw up, they can send you someplace else because they're like, no, you violated what we consider the rules and regulations of what makes a good citizen. You're out. They can send you back. Like it's not even guaranteed. They limit your citizenship by generation, from generation to generation to generation. You could be 3 generations deep, and they can send you back to where your original family came from because you done screwed up somewhere. Like that's how they do it.
But they should be doing that here.
They don't play that nonsense.
They should be doing that here.
Well, they're not. And again, it goes back to when you don't do things right from the beginning, and then you have this variable application of the laws and these loose interpretations, then it allows for people to manipulate the system and come up with their own rules. And instead of either marrying a U.S. citizen or being naturalized properly and making sure they actually don't perjure themselves and they use the process properly, like there are people who get their naturalization and they don't have any problems thereafter because they've done everything right from the beginning. You have people who are literally lying on these documents.
But
that's
this
what
is
he's
why
talking
Trump
about.
wants to
He can
go back 3 or
denaturalize you
4
based off of that.
generations.
First gen, right? Second gen, maybe not, but first gen, definitely. I know because people get sent back all the time. Somebody's going back every month. There's a list of people that you can. I forget where I ran into it. I came across it by accident doing research, but I was kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, okay. So denaturalization has always been on the table. That's never been off the table.
No.
So
but
I don't know what people are upset
3 or 4
about.
generations.
They tell you that from the rip when you're submitting all of those documents.
My thing is, ICE is a great idea. You go out and you get rid of the illegals, because if we're not paying for the illegals, to me that's saving money. Because this is a country, we got to save some money. I don't want to waste all our money on illegals. And people could take that some kind of way, but I'm just being for real. I don't want to waste the money on illegals. So I'd rather them just go. You know what I'm saying? Or just be put out. However you want to see it. I'd rather them just be out of here at the end of the day, because there is a legal process. And if my thing is, if you won't do the legal process, that's on you at the end of the day. That's your issue, not mine.
I think the illegals are only the first step, Roger. It's let me point something else out to you. We only talking about the Latino community, and I'm telling, it's bigger than just the Latino community. Like I did a show on this too, and I want the illegal Africans, the Haitians, all the other non-American quote
Oh,
unquote blacks. Y'all can leave too.
okay.
Because honestly, when it comes to birthright
Well, hold
citizenship,
on,
they have a home. We
hold on,
don't, bro.
hold on. I didn't say nothing about anybody's race. I didn't say nothing about Latinos. I said illegal. I've been saying illegals the whole
Illegals,
show.
period.
I ain't said nothing about anybody
Oh,
being illegal.
I got you.
Yeah, it's
I got you.
illegal.
I was
Period.
building up to a point. I was building up
Oh,
to a
okay, go
particular
ahead.
point.
Go ahead.
The conversation has only been on Latinos from what I'm hearing so far, right? Well, I want to point something out to you. They just had Essence Fest down in like what was it, Atlanta
New
or
Orleans,
something?
yeah, New
I
Orleans,
heard
yeah.
it. I heard it was they called it Jollof Fest. It's a total African culture thing now, and so like if you don't gatekeep your own stuff, other people will take it.
That's
Well,
been the whole thing about America since the start.
yeah, and my thing is, I just recently heard about Haitians getting put out. So I mean, they illegals. I'm not gonna run over there on their side either. Illegal is
Oh yeah.
illegal
Okay,
to me.
So
so
that's been on the table from the
now
beginning. Everybody, it's illegal,
Native
if regardless
Americans
of
have been
race.
run up by
That they've been
ICE.
on the table from the beginning. He was those people were gone from
Indians
the
have been
right
run up
beginning,
by
along with
ICE.
everybody else.
What do you? Everybody's getting hit by ICE. Every race. Y'all not watching the news?
Yeah. They've been hitting them from the
Every
beginning.
race.
It's just primarily it was
Europeans.
primarily Hispanics, but yeah, all the races are getting hit.
Europeans
There's
have been
there's even
hit
some
by
white folks that are
ICE.
getting caught up, or
Yeah, they
people.
got
Native
tell them to go to
Americans,
Harlem
And
next. They
the
got
main
hit
issue with
Harlem.
Indians,
them is overstaying visa or
Indians from India getting hit by ICE.
Yeah, I think
Every race.
honestly, I think the only reason that Hispanics get caught up more because I think it's just more of them here
yeah,
because
there's
it's
more of
just
them. That's
Millions
all.
and millions
because
and millions and
what
millions
I'm
of them.
saying they have an advantage that other folks don't necessarily have. All they got to do is walk across the border. Other
That's
folks
Yeah,
why
got
it's
an
so
issue
millions
about
and
how other folks have an issue about how they gonna get here in the first place. And that's why there's a lot of stuff put on Mexicans because they just can walk. They literally can just walk across the border.
they have
Everybody else
built
ain't got that advantage.
no.
yeah, so everybody
Exactly.
else generally is getting snatched up because it's either criminal activity or they overstayed their visa. That's literally it.
Well, now hold fast, y'all, because I gotta get Gold P in here because Gold P done came up. All right, Gold P, go ahead, my brother. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening? What's happening? Peace to everybody. I appreciate you guys welcoming me, and we having this conversation. Um, the only thing I want to say is, um, or question or ask is jaywalking illegal?
No.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is. It's
Yes, it
still on the
is.
books. It's still on the books.
Yeah,
jaywalk, if jaywalking is illegal and any
It's a code
variation,
violation.
meaning that you can be arrested, then we say that's illegal. So walking across the border is jaywalking. So I'm with Roger.
Yep.
I'm
that's
with
high level
Roger.
jaywalking. But yeah, you got a point.
I'm,
That's higher
I'm
level
with Roger.
jaywalking.
They
But yeah, that's actually a pretty good point.
jaywalking.
It's funny, but it's a pretty good point.
I,
Because
I'm gonna leave it
jaywalking
at
violates
that.
a city
All
ordinance.
right,
But yeah,
I,
I get your
I,
point.
I've got.
Yeah, a city ordinance versus
I mean,
a
he's correct.
international ordinance. Okay, but yeah, he's got a point.
Now I'm
He's
gonna say,
correct.
and to that point, I have been told to do stuff by police officers, and if you don't do it, I'm just gonna take you in for jaywalking. You see what I'm saying? They done got me to comply to certain things, and they have hit me with the look. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, because I just take you in for jaywalking.
This is what, okay, let me give you a quick example. Hold up. Now, the birthright thing, right? Think about this. If you was to sell drugs and make a lot of money and then go open up a legal business, and then the IRS find out that you actually use this money with dirty money to make clean money, nigga, do they let you keep the clean business? No.
No, they take that from you.
Right. So if, in other words, if you come here illegally, have a child, your child ain't legal. How can your child be legal if you illegal?
Well,
Think
that's why I
about
said
that.
they're gonna have
That's
to
why
deal with
take
that
them
14th
back.
Amendment.
Y'all gotta
That
go
that
back.
yeah,
Y'all gotta go
that's
back.
Trump's basic
Blame your
argument.
grandma. Blame your
That's
grandma. When y'all get back to Mexico or wherever the fuck you from, Blame your grandma. Don't blame
Yeah,
us.
that's Trump's argument is that essentially what the preponderance of the babies that are being born were basically being born to non-citizens on both sides.
What up, my
They
nigga?
had no U.S. ties. They weren't even trying to find an American male or female to get any kind of connection. They were just, hey, all of us are
Right.
crossing this border. We're gonna do what it's gonna do.
Because
We're gonna
we
pop
want
this
the money.
baby out, and they were trying to apply like the literal language of the United States of that 14th Amendment to that child.
What
That's
what what this has been my stance on it. Because at the end of the day, I don't care nothing about the baby being a citizen until because it's all about how do you disrupt? Because what's been going on, if you're born here, you're considered a citizen. If you're going to disrupt that, how do you disrupt it? Now that I've heard that the way to disrupt it is about who the parents are, and it was explained that if the father's not an American citizen, the baby won't get citizenship. If that's what the rule gonna be, I'm totally good with that. See, my issue was how you gonna mess stuff up for black folks, but I didn't hear nothing about how this is gonna mess up anything for black people. So I'm good with it.
You can't.
Truth be told.
you know what Trump could really do if
You
he's smart.
can't.
I'm not saying he's
No.
stupid or anything, but
What I'm saying is, if you were gonna create something where you're not automatically a citizen when you're born, the first thing I need to know is how that disruption takes place, because I don't trust the U.S. government like that. So now
Well,
that it's been
look.
explained that the disruption would be because the father is not an American citizen, then I'm good, because that's not going to hurt us.
I got you. Yeah,
As far as hurting black people go, think about this, Roger. Y'all answer me. Tell me if I'm crazy. Trump has done more for the black population with this birthright citizenship move. He's done more for the black population than the whole Democrat Party in my entire lifetime of 40 years.
I'm gonna
Correct.
say this.
I
I don't
yeah.
agree.
think
You
I'm 54. I'm
I don't
correct. You're
see
correct.
no good party. I think the Republicans hate us, and the Democrats hate us too. They all just take their turn doing what they do. So I'm never gonna turn this into no political side. My issue
Well,
is this.
No, no, no,
My
no, no,
issue
no,
has
no, no,
been,
no,
if
no.
birthright is not connected to you being born, I need to know what is it being connected to, because I don't trust the U.S. government. That's been my issue the whole time. But now that they're coming out saying that the connection is going to be about who the mother or how the mother was here and who the father is, which is not going to disrupt black people from becoming citizens when they're born, then I'm totally fine with it. My thing is, was the disruption going to be something that's going to affect black people that's already here? And if it's not, I'm good with it.
Black people can't be deported.
I'm
The
not saying
United
anything
States is
about black people
unable.
being deported. That's not what I said at all. I said a connection to you being born, how that's going to affect you, the person who's actually
That
being born. That's the only
that's
thing I was
never
concerned
affected
with.
us.
Once they
and
Oh,
talk,
that's never
I'm not
affected us.
talking about never. I said once they said they're going to make a disruption of just being
Right.
born, I need to know what the disruption would be before I can support it.
yeah, and
Oh,
all the
okay.
Rogers
I
point
see
is
what you're saying.
it
But
doesn't
that would
hurt.
never.
It
Yeah.
doesn't hurt black
It
men
doesn't hurt us.
specifically, so it's not really our
Mm-mm.
issue to deal with or resolve.
Now here's the
It would
No,
only be
kicker
it
we're
though.
would only
we're
be an issue to
Americans.
us if it affected us in a negative way, and it doesn't.
No,
Now here's the
no.
kicker.
And by the
All
way,
of
that's
these.
actually one of my requirements for any president is we already got enough stuff that's going on. Don't come up with more stuff that's
No,
going to actually
you
hurt black
no,
men or black people in general, but black men specifically.
Now here's the
Um,
no.
kicker. You got all of these.
Americans can't be moved.
Yeah, but now you got all of these passport brothers. These chicks just need to come over here and get with a passport, bro. And passport bros can save money on plane tickets.
nah,
yeah.
you still fucking it up. No, you fucking it up. You still trying to import niggas.
Why? Why? You have enough here.
We not using the ones here. So instead of picking
Why?
strawberries, bitches could come over here, get married,
No,
and
no,
have some
no. The
babies.
reason why they go
Why?
passport is because of the laws in the system. So you're just gonna bring them here to be Western. Dub that whole shit. This is about black people, not about getting pussy from Latino bitches, bro.
Right?
It,
What the
it, it was
fuck?
it was a joke. Calm down, but I understand what you're saying
Oh,
though.
okay.
No,
Yeah.
I feel you,
But
but I'm saying just stay on point. Stay on point. Don't fuck up because she got nice titties, bro.
hey, let me tell. Can I tell you guys a quick
Don't let the
story?
big booty get you in trouble.
Let me. Can I tell y'all a quick story? Once I went to New Orleans. That's where I'm from, right? When I was about 24, 25 years old, and I was hanging out with my cousin, and my cousin had a friend who was real like she could pass for white, thick girl, beautiful, red. yellow, however you want to call it. But I took this girl to my grandmother's house because I had to go change clothes. We were all going out. My grandmother came, when I came back, my grandmother was still up and she told me, don't ever bring a white woman in her house. Now, for years and years and years, I thought my grandmother was racist. Now, we don't look at what's happened to those people in that time. That's why we do what we do today. Because, see, what she was doing was actually protecting her bloodline. Because she cared for her bloodline. She respected it. Now, what we're doing today is intermingling with people outside of our bloodline and thinking we're doing better. But
No,
we're actually,
that's not
actually
what
not
we're
what's
doing.
happening. That's not
That's
what's
not
happening.
what we're doing.
really?
What we're
No.
doing is we're making adjustments because the people who part of the bloodline don't want to protect it.
And not just that. Even with that, there's not a lot of black men doing that at all anyway. You know, we know that when what the majority of black men married, it's going to be to a black woman, so that it's not messing up the bloodline at
That's
all.
the only thing I've ever noticed in my
Your
54
better
years.
argument and more important argument is we don't have enough black men actually reproducing. We got a lot of black
Well,
men saying no
No,
to
well,
reproduction.
well,
The
we need to,
I think
hold
you're
on,
stepping off.
hold on. We're gonna get this on track. The issue is people have not proven that they're worthy for a black man to marry them. So if they're gonna
That's
force
true.
black men to go other places, that's on them. That ain't got nothing to do with us.
That's true.
It is a
Yeah,
woman's job to prove that she's a wife to a man, not the other way
Yes.
around.
Not the other way around.
yeah, and to your story, Daryl, and we can close your story out. I'll just add this: your grandmother was also protecting you too, because dealing with that white woman at that time frame could have been a problem for you.
No, that's exactly what I'm.
Well,
Because I didn't actually think about until later on in life
Yeah, she wasn't
that
being racist at
that's
all.
what
She
she
was just
was
looking out
doing.
for you.
Right. But now
Yeah.
I'm understanding why. Because I
oh,
look at
I
shit
gotta.
now and I'm noticing that, okay, with the way the world is today, they've spent a lot of money to make us look bad and everybody else look good. When in actuality, this is us being normal
Well, we the
because
best
we're
place
at
anyway.
home. But we're at
Well,
home.
No,
You
I
see what I'm
think.
saying?
no.
When
I'm
you're at
saying
home, you
because
do
you
what
said
you want to do
you're
in
trying to
your
make
home.
somebody else look good and trying to make us look bad. The thing is, we just are the better option in general.
Well,
So,
I think when you make this declaration of birthright citizenship, it actually kind of kills your Pan African connection. At least from a legal nationalism standpoint, like we are definitively two different groups of people now. And that what that says is, as a Black American, my birthright starts here. That means we don't really have much affinity for the rest of the world of Black niggas. You know what I mean? It's really us. We are us. CMB. We all we got, bro.
But it's
Yeah,
always been that way.
and to your
well,
point,
We've
Hood. I mean,
always ever needed.
how
well,
strong is that Pan African connection to begin with?
well. I was just gonna say I don't think anything Trump could do anything that could quote unquote separate us. I think black people just see what it is at the end of the day. We're
Okay.
Well,
FBA.
Trump didn't do that. No, Trump didn't do that. The FBA argument is literally Black folk claiming a Black American
What?
identity
No,
organically, but that
no,
automatically kills Pan Africanism,
no.
though.
Now, I'm not saying it's going to necessarily kill Pan African. We may work with them, we may not. The thing is, FBA decided we decided on our own who we are instead of letting people tell us who we are, which was the right move for us to make. Period. Now, how that's going to affect the world? That's not our concern.
No,
This is what it
well, we're
is,
seeing
and this is what's going
we're
this is what it's
seeing
going to be.
we're seeing the fallout of the mix right now. Essence Festival is the first example. You can't mix American with African because it's not a mix. It's two different
Well,
cultures,
we're not going to get into that
two
because that
different
ain't the
people.
conversation today. That's not the
No, I'm just
conversation
saying.
today.
I'm just giving you
I
an
understand that, but
economic
I try to
standpoint of
steer
it.
stuff in a certain direction. So, and I'm trying to keep us on point of today's show because we about to get cut off. Because I already let it go past 3 hours and I already made a decision in my head. When we get to the 3:30 mark, we about to cut this one
Oh,
out.
no
So we
problem.
got about 12 minutes to get in what everybody want to get in. You got about 12 minutes to do it. So at the end of the day, I told y'all beforehand. Unfortunately, I think we lost that episode. That I was all for leaving it where if you are born here, you a
Somebody's
citizen.
got a lot of
Why?
background noise. Somebody's got a lot of background noise.
Well, the reason I
Right.
said beforehand that I needed to stay where it is, where if you're born here, you're a citizen, and we'll just deal with it, just get rid of the parents, because I didn't know what America was going to do as a government. But now that they're putting, hey, this is what America going to do as a government, and it's just about, if you're born here, because a woman could be just visiting or whatever the case is, that the father has to be a legal American already. If that's what the rule is, I can roll with that, and I ain't got no issue with that. And who that affects ain't my problem to solve.
And my only differ is the fact that I would say the grandmother and the mom and the grandchild, send them all back.
No, that's not on the table. So that's
then
not on the
apply
table.
that rule.
No, that's
I
not on the
understand.
table. They said specifically it will not have any retro effect on anybody. So that's not even on the table.
And I think that's the only problem that I would have with.
Well, I mean, you got to win every single thing to take a win.
Yeah, so you guys got to remember, this is not the first time.
Economically, hell yeah. Economically, yes. So I can get all my people back to work.
Well, I mean, so
Hood
Hood actually made the point, and he's right, is that by virtue of clearing a lot of this up, and actually it opens up opportunities for citizens. Not just, let's just say we talk about black men, obviously, because we care about black men.
Right.
But it opens up, let's just say it opens up opportunities for American citizens, which includes black men.
Yeah.
So he is actually right. It's a residual, it's a second, third, and fourth order effect from clearing all of this mess up and getting people up out of here that are violating U.S. laws. And the other thing too is, so people, again, they're trying to trump, no pun intended, they're trying to trump the legal argument and make it an emotional argument. But if you want to make the emotional argument stronger, then that means you got to change the laws. Tom Homan says that from you guys got to listen to his interviews. He's very steadfast with this, and he's very matter of fact when he has this discussion. He's like, "Look, man, just change the laws." I think if you guys don't know who Tom Homan is, he's part of he's the borders are right. He's part of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but he's essentially the de facto borders are right. That the Trump put in charge of all of this. And the thing is that he's very, it's hard to argue with this guy. Not only does he bring in, he just says, look, the law is the law, man. And if people truly feel that the law is wrong, well, then what do we have to do? Then you need an entire movement in order to change that law. And when you start looking at the Constitution and all the other laws, there's no basis for it, which is why they're having trouble making that emotional argument stick. Because there's no legal basis for that's going to override the statutory argument, the legal argument for what's going on right now. They just don't have it. They don't have the standing for it.
I'm gonna throw this out here too, because I have seen a lot of people. Well, I'm gonna say this: the black women I keep seeing who they seem to be on this anti-Trump thing, and everything should just stay the way it is. Honestly, the black women that I've seen making that argument, I don't think none of them were actually FBA women.
Probably not. More likely not.
Because they've been on these major news networks saying this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I investigated what's going on, getting today's thing. I don't think any of them were actually FBA women. I will say that.
FBA or not, I mean, you just got to tell them what it is. You guys are making an emotional argument. You're trying to trump that, and you can't do it.
That they definitely was making the emotional argument. That's why I did one of the reasons I did the show, because I'm looking for all the legal stuff that they're going on with it. Nobody was giving any. It was just everybody was breaking down about how would you feel, and what if it was your kid and all that. Well, my kid ain't trying to get into no country legally, so I ain't worried about all that. At the end of the day.
Well, those are upper class, elite class women, bro. This is a blue collar male issue, so they'll never get it on that level anyway. It's not real to them.
Yeah, I mean, you outside of changing the laws via some type of legislation or a constitutional amendment, which you don't need a constitutional amendment. Oh yeah, but I was going to say, and if Trump is smart, here's what he'll do. Since that universal injunction has been lifted, he has essentially the power of the Congress, both sides. Well, I don't know how strong he has it, but I know he's been able to get other stuff through. He got his bill passed through. So this is the optimum time to make the corrections and make it federal legislation via Congress and congressional and executive approval. That's how you get it done. You
Well,
shut this whole thing down. That way, even when he leaves office, that's part of his legacy.
well, and my thing is, if you're not in agreement with him on this, you know what I'm saying? At least from the large part of it, because to me, he sounds very pro-American. So if you don't agree, it's like, how are you pro-American? If you're America and you live here, like, you probably should be pro-American. At the end of the day, America not always right, but when it's right, you got to support it. You know. And again, it's not like you saying people can't come. There is a legal process for people to come here.
Always has been.
Well, this is what the people voted for. You know what I mean? This is what we voted for, and we getting it. So I'm happy. I'm happy with it. And it feels like the corporations and TV is the ones introducing these dumbass angles for people to argue. Like, these people ain't smart enough to come up with them thoughts on their own.
You can say that again. I'm with you there. You know.
Well, I mean, the spin is coming from everybody who is not from here. If you notice, as a whole, think about it. Nobody from here is actually saying that. You got to think about it. It's like he said, all the people that are speaking against this aren't from here. At some point in time, they came here.
Well, the other
So
thing
this
too
affects
is,
them.
you know, so at least two branches of government are going to have to make a hard decision and shut this thing down and correct it once and for all.
What two branches are those?
The executive and the legislative branch. Right?
Okay.
The Supreme Court only interprets the Constitution. They
Who
don't do
are
anything.
the executive branch?
That would be the
Exactly.
president.
The
Yeah,
president.
the executive is the
Okay.
president. Congress is the
Okay.
legislative branch. They make the laws.
Okay.
He approves it or disapproves it, and then the Supreme Court, all they do is interpret the Constitution. That's their only job. That's the only thing they do, interpret the Constitution. Now, all of that being said, they can shut this down. This is not the first time this immigration has been a major issue. It was an issue under Biden, not Biden. Well, under Biden, obviously, with the influx of the excess number of migrants. And it was also an issue under Obama, right, with the DACA thing, and then going back to the 1980s under Ronald Reagan. Yeah, he thought he kind of solved it with the blanket amnesty program, right? That didn't really solve it. He said, because the idea was, okay, anybody who's here now and already has kids, your kids are citizens, we'll leave it alone. The damage has been, whatever's done is done. We got it. But he didn't. But the idea was he wasn't going to give citizenship to those folks either. But he didn't necessarily implement this large scale deportation program. It's like, look, it is what it is. We got what we got. We're going to try to fix it right here. That didn't fix the problem. All that did was create another generation that led into what we got as it relates to DACA, and it encouraged more illegal immigration or illegal migration. That's all that really, like, you gotta figure out a way to shut this down once and for all and set the rules right, so that way everything from this day forward, or let's just say from 2025 forward, gets done properly. That's literally it. And Trump could do that right now.
Yeah, and it needs to be done because of the you know what I'm saying, because of the ever increasing global economy. All this stuff needs to be in order. You know, and I just think Americans need to just let go of all these tragic situations and understand you can't save everybody. You know, for all the Americans that feel like it's an issue, why?
How do we even know that America was set up to save everybody?
It wasn't.
No, I mean, that's a whole different thing. I'm saying if you're an American and you here, because regardless of how you here, regardless of your cousin trying to get over, at the end of the day, just be glad you're here before they cut it off. You know what I'm saying? At some point in time, you just got to be glad with what you got. You know, but you can't save a whole planet of people.
No.
You know, so what I'm saying is, if you already live here, look, I'm an American, man. I ain't worried about the problems of immigrants. I just say it flat like that.
I ain't gonna lie to you.
I ain't got nothing against the immigrant, but I ain't worried about the problems of the immigrant either.
Well, that's fair, Roger, because they ain't worried about your problems either.
Exactly
right.
See how that
because
goes?
I'm
not worried about you and
I
your
look
problems.
at you. They in the way.
Fair.
They are in the way. Period.
What? I'm
not. They're sent here to be in the way.
No, I'm not.
By the Democratic Party.
I'm not taking it that far, because if somebody comes to them people didn't come to be in the way. It's the people that's here that's trying to put them in the way. That's two different
No,
things. The
Yeah, I
person,
could agree
no.
with that.
the person who came, they just trying to quote unquote experience the American dream. When they're
Fuck all
in the
that.
way, somebody put them in the way, and them people from here.
Exactly.
But those people
And
from here,
the
those are not
people from
foreigners; those
here,
are domestics,
really?
bro. But when somebody not gonna hire you because they want to hire these immigrants, that's a domestic. That's not an immigrant.
And okay, and that's the case. Why aren't we suing these jobs that hire these illegals?
Because
Because
they
they're,
hired them to save money. You can't be mad at the
yeah, bro. You
immigrant
talking
because
about,
he's getting treated horribly.
yeah,
No, that's illegal. The reason why
bro.
you save the money is because you
No,
cutting your
bro,
costs.
because you're talking about
Yeah.
something that's out of people's tax bracket. Because now you're talking about having multi-million-dollar issues. Because these are the same people lobbying you who got enough money to lobby the government on what they want the government to do. So you're talking about something that's not an enormous person's tax bracket at the end of the day.
I hear
But
you,
the
but this is the
issue is
problem.
no. The issue is not who's suing. The issue is first recognizing who your enemy is. The illegal just came to
Right,
have a better life. The
right,
legal person that put them in the way, as you said, that's a
uh-huh,
domestic person trying to hurt you. The illegal didn't
right.
come to hurt you. The domestic person
Oh,
is coming to hurt you. So I'm saying recognize your enemy. But y'all, we are
okay.
at the 3:30 mark, so we can say it backstage from this point. That's going to be the last word on this. It's been a great show, if you ask me. If you're new to the channel, make sure you like the video and subscribe. We'll be on tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central Time. Long live the habitual line steppers. I'm Roger. I'm right. And I'm out.